Welcome, everybody, to Crunch Time with Jeff, Booner, Lukas, and Michael Gentry. Gentry will be joining us in a little bit here.
There we go, baby.
The Red Wings, they're playing. They're already an hour into the game. And, of course, a lot of my friends are down there. Also, the Lions posted their 2023-2024 season recap.
Brutal.
It's going live at 8 o'clock. So, hey.
Brutal.
Love you. But it's tough. So,
if you guys are here, stay here with us. Everyone join us. We can all go watch it at 10 o'clock together.
Absolutely.
We'll be the second wave to watch it.
I mean, the boys will be watching it
Yes.
definitely. Definitely after the show here. Everyone who's here, we appreciate you guys. Yeah, ETN was the first one in. Detroit Grit as well. Freddie313.
Shout out.
Shout out to him. Dark Flame. We got Anakin in here as well. Steve Wilds. And the good people that tend to join us often. Steve Lehman and, of course, Phil and many, many more. But, guys, we got great topics today. Obviously, Brad Holmes and Dan spoke to the media in Indianapolis. And we're going to break that down. We'll be in Indianapolis later this week on Friday to Saturday. So hopefully they'll still be there. So, hey, we can maybe chop it up. Maybe we can get that Booner Dan Campbell meet. You know, they can finally crack the cold one together.
You guys can get a beer.
Yeah,
that'd be something, man. Get
a beer in Indy together. But, yeah, we'll be breaking that down. John Maakaron, publisher of All Lions and host of the Detroit Sports Podcast, will be joining us at 8:45. So that'll be a good time. He'll help us kind of break down some of the comments today from Brad and Dan. And we'll be covering that. We'll be going through some 33rd team stuff that they posted at about 9 o'clock, which is going to be a good conversation. And then in the second hour, and maybe we'll move this up, but Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Packers, he took some shots. He took some shots. The Lions posted the picture today of the banner hanging. And, they put it on social media. It's a big deal. It doesn't happen often. And then I think they asked Brian about it because it's like, hey, well, they're hanging up a banner. How do you feel about whatever it was? And his response was basically like, well, we don't hang division banners. Like we want to win Super Bowls. Okay, says the guy who had arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. And he got one Super Bowl from it. But yeah, hang that one up. That's
so.
We're
are we going into this now or?
No, I just want to tease that a little bit. We'll get into it later in the show. It's just I hate that dude. I don't know why. He just has I hate his name. I don't know why.
Yeah, I would say that's where it stems from.
Sounds like a terrible name, man.
It is
Sounds
funny
like a cartoon villain.
Because Pat McAfee and for all the drama with Aaron Rodgers, I listen, Aaron's not perfect, but the relationship with Brian and him, it just makes me hate the guy even more. But we will get into the Dan Campbell stuff because he did meet with the media. And he spoke on a lot of different things. Yeah, he mentioned Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker, Terrell Williams. I actually called him. I got to apologize. I called Terrell Williams Terrell Adams yesterday.
Yeah, I got what you were saying.
Okay, thank you. I want to correct.
I didn't even catch it, so
yeah, I don't know why Terrell Adams. I don't even think there's no reason for that. It's just I don't know why Adams sounded like it made sense, but he's Terrell Williams, the defensive line coach. Who Dan called him the best defensive line coach in the NFL. So that's great news for Lions fans. But he did speak on Jared Goff here. And I want to pull up the quote. This is from Eric Woodyard, who put it out. So, and a lot of other people put it out, but I'll read the quote to be exact here, and I'll put it up on the screen so everybody can see it. And it basically just reconfirmed what we already know about how they feel about Jared Goff. It's nothing, surprising. Essentially, and here's the quote. Lions head coach Dan Campbell and Jared Goff. Quote, to me, Jared Goff is a winning QB. You could win this league with that guy, and you can't say that for a lot of guys. So I'm glad that he's here. I'm glad he's ours. And you could argue he's grown more than a lot of players we've had, which I think that last part of the quote kind of speaks volumes to who Jared is as a player because people forget what he was when he got here. He was basically thrown away from one of the arguably the best offensive coach in the NFL. So it's hard to even have confidence in a guy like that, but he's turned his whole career around. So he's spot on there at the last part.
Yeah. And this is where I stand on it too is, I mean, I feel like we've talked about Jared, I guess it's our quarterback in Detroit. So it's a conversation to be had every week, but this is questions every time they have press conferences. Now it's going to be asked until a deal's done, whether they give you the kind of the go around, whatever it is, it's going to be asked consistently going forward. I think it's something, and you guys could tell me if you guys disagree, but I think it's something like, let's just move on. Like, there's going to be, I'm convinced there's going to be a deal done. The way Dan talked about him, saying, hey, that's our guy. Like, we're happy to have him. We want a guy who's going to win football games. And Brad mentioned him as well. And he said, listen, like, we're going to give you an update when there's one to be had. There's conversations, there's talks, and there's going to be like, it seems like the deal is basically done, not done, but like, we're going to get Jared Goff re-signed. We know the direction, and we're all know the exact direction that this football team and this organization is going at quarterback, and it seems to be Jared Goff. So, like, the way Dan Campbell spoke about him today, he's the quarterback in Detroit for a few more seasons, and that's just. And I'm at the point to where it's like what Dan said there, like. You want a quarterback who's going to win football games. Jared Goff has proven that. Like, and if you have a quarterback, and I tell you guys this all the time, is when you have a quarterback that can win you football games in the NFL, don't ever go away from that until you have a guy that's at an elite level. And that's, I'll stand on that forever. It's unless you find your Patrick Mahomes, which maybe the Hendon Hooker can be that guy. But as of now, for the next two years, you have Jared Goff, and it's like, let's just move on and stick with him. These questions, it's just like, it seems like it's just kind of a miracle round or whatever that term is, where it's like we're just going to keep asking. It's like rinse and repeat. It's like he's going to be the quarterback here. There's going to be a deal done before the end of the offseason. Let's move on. There's going to be an extension. He's your guy. He wins you football games, whether he plays bad or plays good. Like, even when he plays bad, they find ways to win football games when he plays bad. Like, even that Bears game. Like, so that's where I'm at. You have a quarterback that can win you football games. I'm just like, let's just sign him and move on. Because all of this is just, to me, it's just noise that doesn't need to be there. Like, you know who your guy is now.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, you look at Jared, right? I think the point you made that I 100% agree with is it's hard to find a quarterback that, again, like, is a consistent starter. We've seen quarterbacks that are starters for 2 years and then teams move on. But for Jared, like, he's played at a high level for at least the last 2 years. He's been at a Pro Bowl level. And there's only, I mean, if you want to put him in the top 10, which we did when we did our quarterback rankings, we would say he's in a group of 10 quarterbacks in a 32 team league. So it is Jared, to get a Jared Goff, like, the Lions are lucky. There's a lot of teams that are still searching. I just think people get hung up too much in the idea of they get to watch Patrick Mahomes, get to watch Josh Allen, get to watch Joe Burrow, get to watch these guys that make it look so easy. Not saying that Goff doesn't, but it's almost like people are spoiled to the point where it's like, we need that. It's like the new shiny toy. It's like, we need Patrick Mahomes. But people have to understand that those guys don't come around often at all, actually. And hitting on a quarterback is one of the hardest things to do. Now, you can look at quarterbacks and say, like, okay, well, a guy like Hendon, I don't blame people for being a fan of him. I like Hendon a lot. But it doesn't mean, like I always say, right, with this conversation, it feels like it's pick a side. And I don't think it should be that way. Like, I like Jared. I appreciate him. He's a starter. He's a guy that, again, took you to an NFC Championship game, had a 17-point lead. And on the other flip of it, I'm like, well, I like Hendon. And same with Dan Campbell's comments. He said, Hendon Hooker's grown a lot, which, like, both things can be true. Like, you might have just not saying Hendon's on the same level of Jared, but you might have two good quarterbacks, one that's playing at a great level and one that's still developing.
And I do want to, I feel like every time we talk Jared Goff, Chef has something to say in the chat. He said, it's crazy you try to shut down the conversations when you talk sports every day. Listen, we're not shutting down the conversation. I'm saying, listen, there is going to be a Jared Goff extension done this season. Like, that is a fact. There's no getting around that. Like, he is going to get extended in the Honolulu Blue. There's nothing else that's going to happen. Like, yes, maybe, and I'm on the fact to where what you said, Jeff. I love Hendon Hooker's game. If he didn't get hurt, he's a first-round draft pick last year. That's a fact. Like, he would have won the Heisman, and he would have been a first-round draft pick if he didn't get hurt. So you got to still get him in the third round. But at the end of the day, it's, hey, you have a guy who can win football games. Now, if Hendon Hooker in the next year or two ends up being that playmaker who can be that Patrick Mahomes, that Josh Allen, that next step, then, okay, let's have that conversation. Right now, though, it's, hey, for the next year or two, until you know that, you need to extend your quarterback, and you need to make sure he's here, and you need to make sure you take care of him, because I want to continue to keep winning football games. Like, we haven't been in this situation as an organization to where you have a chance to go win a Super Bowl. And I know the whole Matthew Stafford saga and all of that, but it's like, hey, you paid him a ton of money. You don't even have to pay Jared Goff a ton of money. You can just extend him to keep him here, to keep winning football games and build that culture. And then when the time does come, whether it's in a year and a half or 2 seasons, you still have Hendon Hooker there sitting there on a 3 or 4 year deal, or however many years left he has now. And you can sit there and say, okay, now we can make a move. Do we need to trade Jared Goff? Do we need to just cut him? Look at the quarterbacks around the NFL right now that are just getting absolutely just cut. And teams are taking the money and they're saying, like Russell Wilson, like there are quarterbacks out there. And if you have to take that in a couple of years because Hendon Hooker's that good, I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, right now, we're winning football games. So there is not me saying, I talk sports all day, I'm getting around that conversation. Not whatsoever. The conversation is he's going to get extended and he's going to be staying in Detroit. And that's just what it is. There's no like battle. In my opinion, there should be no battle going into next season. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. Super Bowl teams don't battle at quarterback. That doesn't happen. You don't have a quarterback battle with the Super Bowl caliber football team. That's just me.
What about you, Lucas?
No, and I know I cut out there for a second, but Jared Goff, whether we like it or not, just to Booner's point, he's going to be here, and he's been Brad and Dan's guy since the day he stepped foot in the locker room, and you can see it, and they've grown as a group. You can see the chemistry's been getting stronger and stronger each season, and there will be a day when Jared Goff is not the quarterback for the Detroit Lions, but that road is way, way down the road. I don't think that's going to be anytime soon, so Jared Goff will without a doubt be, if he'll be re-signed this offseason like we've talked about before.
And here's the quote. Shout out to Pride of Detroit. They put this out. Dan Campbell says, we saw growth from Hendon Hooker in 2023. Says it's encouraging, but they still don't know what they have in him, which, again, is like 100% fair.
Yep.
Nobody knows because you haven't got to see him in NFL action, even in preseason action. And to be honest with you, like now that we got that out of the way, Jared Goff isn't going anywhere. He's going to be extended. That should be known. It's time to have a real conversation, which is, I think, the obvious, which something that me and you, Lucas, have talked about. I know me and Booner have as well. And that guy up north, he says no one is saying Goff is old, but it's about his limitations physically. Yes, Hooker ain't much younger, but he is more mobile and has a much better arm. That's the difference. And although we haven't seen Hendon Hooker, right, in NFL action, so to say he's better would be blasphemous. But to sit here and say that you like the physical tools that Hendon Hooker has, because that's where the league is heading, I don't think that's egregious to say. I think that's 100% fair. That's why I bring up, it feels like if I even say that, there's people out there that love Goff, rightfully so, that'll be like, how dare you? How dare you pump up a guy that we don't even know is good yet? You're right. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have potential, right?
Yeah.
Everyone loves Brad Holmes' ability to identify talent. I do. You do. Booner does. But then when it comes to selecting a quarterback, it's like, nah. He sucks.
That's why I go back to the point where if he didn't get hurt, he's a first-round draft pick and a Heisman Trophy winner.
So
he has what it takes to be great.
And I think it's a smart business move, guys, that Brad Holmes, he took Hendon Hooker off 1 year of Jared having a Pro Bowl year, that he took a guy that, there's some potential with. It's a swing in the third round. If it doesn't work out, well, you still have Jared. And if Jared regresses, you have another option. To me, it's not that hard to process that line of thinking from Brad Holmes. To me, it's actually smart. He's being proactive, not reactive.
Do you remember the conversations we had before the season, like last NFL draft, kind of pre-NFL draft? We had these conversations. I think I might have gone on the morning show a couple times, and as well as when we did the day 2 of the draft, before even they drafted Hendon Hooker, I kept bringing up all of these, like the 49ers, the Patriots. And I went out and got those stats showing like, hey, when these teams are still winning Super Bowls, go look at the quarterbacks they draft. And these every single season or every other draft, these guys are quarterback. It's because you're trying to find that next guy. And that's just what the NFL is. That's what Hendon Hooker was last year to me. It's, hey, we're putting a guy in our room. Like, who do we have? Who was the guys last year that we had in our room? We had like 3 guys who they were never going to be starting caliber quarterbacks in the NFL. You had nothing to back up Jared Goff in the future. Now you had the kind of availability and kind of the leash to go out there and say, now we can use a pick on a quarterback to go do that. That doesn't mean he's going to be the starter and it's going to sit there and compete with Jared Goff right away. But that means, hey, we have someone in the future that we can actually develop on our own, make our quarterback, and we could potentially have the quarterback of our future. And that's how I look at Hendon Hooker. We have our quarterback now. Hendon Hooker could be the quarterback of the future for this Detroit Lions organization. He is learning the culture. He's learning everything about that, which I love, because with his skill set, what he did at Tennessee and what he can do, having him in the building like that to me is it's priceless. Because then in the next couple of years, when you do need to make that step and turn the tables, you potentially have someone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, even when you have this conversation about Hendon Hooker and what he could be, it doesn't mean that you don't Lions fans don't want Jared Goff to be the starter. Like, that's like, no, that's not at all. We can all agree that Hendon is a better option than they've had at backup. Way better. The Tim Boyles of the world, or the
Nate
I'm
Sudfeld.
blanking on.
Yeah.
No,
Nate
we're missing. What's his name, man? They just went to the Commanders.
David Blau.
David Blau.
That was the one that was just stuck in my head.
Who actually just retired, and now he's a coach.
Yeah.
So that should tell you all you need to know. We'll play this video here. This is Dan Campbell speaking on Terrell Williams, the new defensive line coach, and kind of what he brings. And here is that. I want to make sure I can put this up. This is better. All right, here's the video.
Ooh, look at that.
I've had experience with. I think he's the best D-line coach in the league. If he's not, he's certainly right up there. I think he knows how to develop. He's got experience in game planning, and he's going to be beneficial for our guys up front. Deshae Townsend played a long time, coached a long time. He's going to be able to deliver exactly what AG wants in the back end. And so those guys are going to be vital. And then certainly Jim O'Neill's the defensive assistant, been a coordinator in this league, and has a wealth of experience. So those guys will be good for us defensively, really help AG finish the vision of what we're looking for. But to be able to get Terrell Williams, somebody that I've had.
So that's the clip there. Dan Campbell speaking about Terrell Williams and their new hire, actually former Jags passing game coordinator, defensive pass game coordinator, who they actually brought in, who hopefully has some answers for the secondary, because, and like you said, to help AG out, because they need it. They need talent, but they also AG needs help as well on his coaching staff. So I like it. Coach Walk 37 says, "Who do you guys think will be the next QB or CB coach?"
I believe they already got a CB coach. I believe.
No, they got Dre Bly.
Dre
Bly is gone now. Dre Bly is gone.
Oh, is he gone?
He's off the. I don't know if it's official, but he was not on the Lions website anymore. A handful of guys or got taken off the website. I believe he was one of them. They did sign someone. We could figure that out.
Townsend.
Then it's probably Townsend. If I didn't, did they like officially
they brought
report
someone
that Bly's gone?
It wasn't like official, but they took guys off the website and they announced the new guys, which basically means they let go of a few guys, and Dre Bly was a part of that. So in my opinion, they just. I don't want to like go at Dre Bly and some of these guys, but it just seems like Dan said like we needed a change, needed like some new voices in the room, and we needed kind of an upgrade, in my opinion. And that's how I took it. Like Terrell Williams, like dude, he was with what's his name over in Tennessee, just and that was a defense that for years just dominated. Like that was how they went to the playoffs every year, was their defense in Tennessee, and he was a part of that on the defensive line as the defensive lines coach. So, did you guys see the today? Nolan Bianchi tweeted this out. But he put out there, he said that Terrell Williams met with a handful of local reporters, and this is the quote that came out, fellas. He said about his coaching philosophy. He said, "Violent, that's it. I'm not going to give you dissertation about it. Hey, we have to do this. You got to play violent and you got to play with effort." So this is a dude that's coming in like we're about to mess some stuff up here, which that's what I love. It feels like that's what I think I said it on shows during the season. Like, why aren't these guys just out there just being like just dudes, like just playing angry? Like that's what you want on defense, right? And like none of these guys were doing that all year until the playoffs. And it was just like these guys aren't out there just mad and angry and playing violence. So I like that. I like the mindset.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Aaron Glenn, he has not been able to do what he wanted defensively as far as his scheme. You look at Ben Johnson, he's a great mind, but he has Antoine Randall L. That's a stud as a wide receivers coach. Scotty Montgomery is a running back coach. Hank Fraley, you can keep going down. He has great positional coaches that are underneath him. Aaron Glenn, you can tell that, the talent's not there, but there hasn't been like a consistent culture. And when you talk about bringing in a Terrell Williams, that's a guy that can set the culture. You look at the Tennessee Titans defensive line, nasty. They didn't have the best secondary in the world. But when you look at the Jeffrey Simmons, the Harold Landrys, even the Danico Autry, who had a season this year, I know it was in a contract year, but the development of that defensive line and that front seven in Tennessee goes hand in hand with Derrick Henry. And what do the Lions like to do? run the ball. So he's going to figure out a way to get the best out of that defensive line, the free agents, the rookies that are coming in to help control that line of scrimmage, which then gives the Lions time of possession. And when the Lions have time of possession and control the clock, most of the time they end up winning that game. So it's going to be huge for both sides of the ball.
It's actually a great point you just made because you're correct. It seems like AG, with the guys he's had around him, I mean, you had Aubrey Pleasant dismissed. You have now Dre Bly dismissed. Like, he has not been able to. Now you bring in Terrell Williams, which is a great hire, and that's kind of like your Hank Fraley, your defensive line savant, who is according to Dan Campbell the best in the league, which I would tend to lean that way, considering how much those guys over in Tennessee have developed and what they've turned into, like Pro Bowlers, and guys having career years. So it is exciting, and that's why the whole AG conversation. We've all never wavered. It's not about blind. It's not about sticking up for him blindly. It's just realizing what's real. And hopefully they can bring in a secondary coach. Hopefully now Townsend is the correct hire. I would assume so.
And two, like Dan, two quick things as well. Like Dan in the past, he has shown that he's been able to kind of make these changes in a more positive direction. Like every move that he's technically made has helped this team out, and you could really you could see it happen. And so I think him bringing in some new guys, I think it's something like, I talked about it at the trade deadline and kind of when they went on that bad streak. I thought he was going to let someone go, like a positional coach, just because he's done that in the past to kind of set the tone, bring a new guy in and say, hey, we need some new life here at this position. That's what it felt like all season. I actually brought up the defensive line mid-season, and I said the defensive line coach, I can't remember who it was last season, but that might be a guy that you could see kind of getting let go just because that defensive line was not producing at all. And that was the thing that all I want out of my defensive line is just to go out there and play angry. Like, don't when you're one-on-ones and play angry. And Aiden Hutchinson was the only one that was doing it all season long outside of Aleem McNeil, but he ended up getting hurt. So that's all you want. And getting Terrell Williams in here to be able to do that. And the first quote that he comes out as a Detroit Lions coach is to say that, just play violent. I love that. It doesn't get much better than that. Like, that is what you want. So I think there's positive change, especially in the secondary too. Like, those were two position groups that if they didn't make any changes, obviously with players, but coaches, you probably would have been questioning Dan Campbell. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, Booner Pats is getting disrupted here if you don't make a move here, brother.
Xavier D says, brought in a guy that can get Broderick Martin on the field.
Exactly.
I don't know, Lucas.
True.
Maybe your guy, Jeff. Maybe your guy.
Yeah.
It's true, though, because the development outside of, I mean, let's be real here. And I'm not blaming this on Aiden Hutchinson, but we all expected a bigger jump out of Aiden Hutchinson this year. Aleem McNeil is really the only guy that has taken that next step. James Houston, you could say that, but that's what he was when he came out. And even this year, I know it's due to injury. Can't say that he developed into much, especially when he's pretty much a one-trick pony as far as he's not very good against the run. You know what I mean? Like, he hasn't developed that run game yet. So when you look at the progression of these guys, they haven't really been able to develop. So if you can get Terrell Williams in there to really develop Broderick with his intangibles, go wrong with his size, he can be proving me wrong here one day. And so I'm not going to be, hey, if it goes that way, I'm going to be a happy camper, but I think it's bleak with the offseason they're about to have.
Do you guys remember 2 years ago, that second half of the season when they went on that 9-3 run or whatever, the defensive line was getting sacks, right? Like they were producing a bit. Guess what? They had Todd Walsh at that point. He ended up leaving and getting a different job somewhere else. And then you brought in the guy from last year, I believe John Scott Jr., and he came in, and it just didn't seem like everything was the same. Like things did, like the development felt like it slowed down.
Like,
they weren't playing as angry. Here. Everything looked different. And I don't think a lot of people noticed it. And I brought this up mid-season. I said, like, Todd Walsh left, and now you have John Scott Jr. here. And nothing against John Scott Jr., but you could tell the defensive line was night and day difference. Like, it was completely different. And it was affecting this defense a lot. And that was why AG had to start doing moves, obviously with the corners too. But, like, this was a big deal in my opinion. So getting a new guy in here, Terrell Williams, who's, like, very, very experienced working with D linemen and has worked with some of the best defenses in the NFL with Mike Vrabel. Like, dude, I think I'm pumped. Dan seemed to be pumped too. Dan seemed to be ready to roll with it. That seems like it's his dude.
Charles says, I love your content, boys. Gonna try to watch more live. You're my morning show now since y'all left Woodward. Let's go Red Wings.
Shout out Charles, man.
Charles. And then
I love that picture too.
He proceeded to become a member as well, Crunch member. So appreciate you, Charles, for the kind words, brother, and for the support.
Did you guys see that picture with the national championship trophy?
Oh, well,
Not,
yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, man. Do you guys have any?
And
Yeah, Lucas does.
And another point that would be good is for him going with Kelvin Shepherd. This can help Kelvin Shepherd out. We're talking about Terrell Williams here. This could help Kelvin Shepherd out with his position, especially if Aaron Glenn leaves to take a head coaching position. And I think that, in my opinion, I've said this multiple times, that Kelvin Shepherd is that next guy up. So with all the experience he can get to help front with the front seven, I think this would be big for Kelvin Shepherd as well. So the linebacking room could even take a bigger jump than we all expected.
This defense could be good, boys. Let's get top 15. That's all I ask for.
I mean,
Top
they
15.
have to
That's
be
it.
not elite, but they got to be close to top 10.
Top
And,
15.
then you're
I'll
talking.
die on that hill.
Then you're talking about a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I saw people talking about the Red Wings. I want to give an update now because I just checked briefly. I had the game on before the show. They're up 4-1 against the Caps. And man, they look good.
That is huge, man.
They look really good. Raymond's got a goal. Valino's got a goal. And then hold on. Yeah.
5-1?
Yeah, no, 4-1. They're playing really well. It's the second period right now. They got about 5 minutes left. So yeah, I mean the Red Wings, man. We posted a video yesterday. If you haven't checked it out, please go do that. We just posted yesterday. It's our clip kind of breaking down the Red Wings, breaking down what's to come and how we believe they're a legitimate sleeper come the postseason. And it's doing pretty well so far. And I think it's now, we're kind of being proven right with how they're playing. I know a lot of Red Wings fans feel that same way. Brad Holmes, to kind of stay on topic here, he spoke as well after Dan Campbell at 4:00. Got to catch that. And Brad, he kind of confirmed everything that I've been saying about how we believe he'll approach free agency, which is smart, short-term, cost-effective signings to maintain flexibility, but to improve this football team. Lucas, a guy that me and you love a lot, Leonard Floyd, a signing like that based on what he said, it reconfirms what we already believed. And I know for you, Booner, and not just you, Booner, this isn't even about you. This is about a lot of Lions fans. I know talking about a big, it kind of puts into perspective kind of his thought process.
Yeah. I mean, we had the can you guys hear me too, by the way?
Yeah. Yep,
all right. Cut out on my end for a second. Okay. We had the conversation today, Jeff. I called you actually about it because listening to Brad at the combine today, the comments that he's been making, I know last week I even mentioned you need that one signing to be able to kind of put everything over the top. The mindset that these guys have, I think it kind of, and I think fans and people need to start kind of having this mindset as well. It's like, hey, what got you here and what's going to kind of get you that Super Bowl? And it's been what Brad has been doing. Like there's a reason in the last 3 seasons he's built what he has. It's because he's drafted correctly and he's brought the right guys in and he's made the right moves. It does feel like a lot of us, and then I had a case of it last week as well when we did the show with you, Jeff. Like when you brought that up, was, hey, we need to go out and get a big Daniil Hunter. We need to go out and spend money. That might not be the case anymore. And I'm starting to fall more on that side to where this isn't the case to where I'm not as worried if Brad Holmes doesn't go out there and get a big time guy. He mentioned it today. And Dan, the biggest thing too, I heard from Dan today, I don't know if you guys heard this. Dan came out and said, hey, our number one priority is depth. We don't care about getting one big time player at one position. We want to get 3 or 4 guys. We want to get depth because we know, guess what happens in the NFL? Guys get hurt. That's like inevitable. Dudes are going to get hurt. So you need to be able to back those guys up. And that's kind of their mentality. And I think what they've done the last 2 or 3 years is they've started to build depth at certain positions. And on top of that, they're getting their guys. So I'm with you. I'm kind of on your side now, Jeff. I don't want to flip completely because I wouldn't still, at the end of the day, like I know you guys still agree with this. Like if they get a L'Jarius Sneed or a Daniil Hunter, like no one's going to be mad and be like, why did they do that? Because that can help the football team. But at the end of the day, us kind of relying and being like they have to do that, I think that's setting us up for failure, kind of in the media and as well as fans of the Detroit Lions, because it's probably not going to happen. Like Brad's going to do what Brad's going to do. Like he's going to go out there and he's going to draft the right players. He's going to make some trades, make some moves, and he's going to go out there and get 4 or 5 or 6 guys in free agency that are going to help this team kind of keep moving forward. Because he's quote. This is a quote from Brad Holmes. He said, "I said this last year. Our goal is to keep moving forward. It's not to take any steps back. And bringing a guy in, big time money, potentially could take you back because he might not be worth that money in a year or two." So that was a lot. I'm sorry, guys, but that was just kind of I had this conversation with Jeff earlier today, and that was kind of what came out of it. Was I think Brad's going to be Brad Holmes, and he's not going to change up just because all of us are saying go out and spend the money, or just because they raised the cap. Like, that's not going to happen at the end of the day. He's going to do what he did, and just think about what he's built in 3 years. If he keeps doing this for the next year or two, think about how good this team can be. Like, he's just building for that long-term success, man.
Yeah, I mean, you already have your core established as far as what you want on the defensive side or the offensive side of the ball. And pretty much you do on the defensive side of the ball. As far as the secondary, you know you're going to have Brian Branch. You know you're going to have Kirby Joseph for the next 2-3 seasons. You know you're going to have Jack Campbell and Anzo. He just got re-signed last year. And then you have Aleem and Aiden. You don't have to. You were just up 17 in the NFC Championship game. You do not have to get some huge 5-star guy. Instead of getting a huge 5-star guy, you can go get the Leonard Floyd, the Bryce Huffs of the world. There's many players around the NFL right now that can make an impact that aren't going to be high commanding prices and aren't the biggest names, but they'll fill the holes, to Booner's point, of what this team needs. And if you can do that plain and simple, this team can go into the Super Bowl and win that game. That's all they need to do. They don't have to get a Danielle Hunter. They can get a guy that is not a high caliber player, but puts up high caliber production, especially when you're opposite of Aiden Hutchinson.
Not even in. I'm sorry, just not even high caliber, like you just need production at the end of the day. Like, you just need a bunch of guys who can produce. Like, there's a lot of people around the city right now in different shows that are talking about going out and get these big names. And they're like, it's a life or death scenario. Like, if they don't get a big name, they're not going to make a Super Bowl run. And that to me, this is wrong. Cause like, Brad's going to continue to draft like building block players, and he's going to continue to sign guys that are going to make an impact. Last year, he signed some dudes, and some of them obviously got in. Like, CJ Gardner-Johnson got injured. David Montgomery, guess what? Look what he did for your offense. Like, it's going to be hit or miss, but as long as you out there and get the right guys instead of just chasing guys and spending money, like I'm starting to get more on that side of it, because I would rather win multiple Super Bowls than just say, hey, let's just go at it this year all in, and something might not work out.
Yeah, well, there's like a sense of comfortability when you draft talented players and you get to retain them because you know them thoroughly. It's harder especially for someone like Brad Holmes, when you hear, and from a fan's perspective, it's like, oh, sign this guy, sign that guy. You know, there's media outlets that just spam that all day on Twitter. But the reality is that's not realistic. And Brad Holmes even spoke about it. Like, you're bringing in somebody you don't know as much about, you're not familiar with. And you notice how GMs tend to sign guys that they've had at former workplaces or organizations they've been a part of in the past, because there's a familiarity there. Like, for Brad, unless he's familiar with the player, which I think Leonard Floyd is a little familiar with, that's a side thing regardless. There is. That's real, right? Like, and they asked him that re-signing guys, and he said pretty much the same thing as like Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell, St. Brown. There's no question what those guys bring. Jared Goff. But I think for those big-time free agent signings, like to the injury point, if you bring in somebody like a Danielle Hunter and you pay top dollar for him, is he a fantastic player? Absolutely. But the depth thing is real, because you only are bringing in, and he kind of spoke on the one player away thing, and he doesn't believe that's a real thing. You're not always one player away. It felt like the 49ers in a way when they got Chase Young. It felt like that was their one player because they were so stacked already. It turns out that it didn't matter. Mahomes just came up on top regardless. So I get improving your football team, but it's never one player away. They need depth. And they have depth, but they need to sustain that and keep building depth. Yeah. Bring in good football players that aren't going to mess up what you have currently. What you have going forward. Like, to Lucas's point, you were up 17 in an NFC Championship game. Yes. Not saying you have to make any moves.
You almost just went to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, not saying you have to make any moves. That'd be idiotic. But to say they have to make a significant move, or no, they'll be okay. Brad Holmes he'll bring in the right guys.
The word you said there, Jeff, sustain, like that. If you guys listen to the press conference today, one quote, and I wrote this quote down because I thought it was like this whole like segment from Brad Holmes was just gold. But literally, this is an exact quote from him. He said, "The process will always be numero uno." And that is exactly what he said. Numero uno. Like, that is exactly what he said. Like, it will be number one. Verbatim. The process is always numero uno. And I'm with him on that. And that's how he looks at things. And right after that, he said, you never let your foot off the gas in this league. Like, and that's where I know, like, hey, if you guys don't think he's going to spend, like, he's not going to go out there and spend $30 million on a Danielle Hunter. He's not going to go out there and spend 20-something million on a big-time corner probably. But guess what? He knows, like you said, Jeff, like you just don't want to take a step back. And it's not like he's going to go out there and not make any moves. No, like he literally said today that you have to keep your foot on the gas here in the NFL year after year after year. And that's exactly what I think he's going to do. I think he's going to keep every year just stacking up. In the draft, he's going to keep getting like those building block pieces that you need to just keep adding. Like I look at other franchises in different leagues, fellas, and you see when some of these teams go out and just get a big time player and sign him to a massive contract within a year or two. Like they might have made a championship run, but they're done within a year or two. Their cap's messed up. They're looking to trade the guy. The guy's like there's just always issue. It seems like that's like an easy out or an easy way to win outside of what Dan is or Brad is actually doing.
Yeah, and I was going to say, or go ahead, Jeff.
No, go. I'm good.
I was going to say, it's pretty much like the Lions, especially in Detroit, they were in a situation where they absolutely needed to hit that trade button to make a difference. They have already made that difference through the draft. If they just keep doing what they have been doing, to Booner's point, just making draft numero uno, free agency, just get what you need to do to address the depth and let that top tier talent just mesh with the depth and the veteran talent that we can now add and what's building here already. So they're not in the position where they have to panic and hit right now. And they know they need to get this player right now because their window is just opening. The 49ers, they do it all the time, but that's because they have been in that window for the last 3 to 4 seasons. The Lions, I think they're now going to be entering that window. So down the road, maybe when you're talking about players like when Jahmyr Gibbs' contract starts coming up, when Kirby Joseph, like maybe that's when you see Brad start getting more involved with trades. But for right now, I think he's just going to keep doing what he's been doing.
Yeah, and that's why, the whole one player away thing it's funny because, let's just bring up Danielle Hunter, for example. Would he tremendously help this defensive line? Absolutely. But the problem, though, and here's the trade-off. If Danielle Hunter goes down, there's a big chunk of the free agency money that you would have allocated to depth or put towards depth, and now it's in one player. And if he goes down, God forbid, you're screwed. And I know that there's going to be injuries, and that's guaranteed in the NFL, especially how physical of a sport it is. So to Brad's point, if you bring in, and I keep using Leonard Floyd, but it's an example. I'm just using him as an example. If you bring in a Leonard Floyd, you bring in another defensive end, whoever it is, if Leonard Floyd goes down, you have more money available, and you were able to afford more guys behind Leonard Floyd.
That's the biggest thing.
That's always been my thought process with it. It just makes more sense financially, and in football terms, it makes more sense.
I believe too. He literally said that. Brad said that on 97.1 was he brought up the fact that, hey, listen, we can go get a Danielle Hunter, but if he does get hurt, then what do you do? Like, what do you do after that? Like, but if we go out and we get 2 or 3 guys at a defensive end position and 2 or 3 guys who can and draft a guy or two, and now you have a handful of guys, and like I keep saying, revamping this defensive line, and a guy goes down, you still have all of those other guys that you went and got at a smaller deal, but you're basically by committee at that point. And that's what they've been good at. Like if the NFL, do people get hurt? Like it's a league to where guys are always getting hurt. Like look at the 49ers, like Trent Williams went down, Nick Boat, like or Brock Purdy went, like Debo, like guys are going down and they go through that bad stretch of football. Imagine if that happens in the playoffs for them. They had no depth. They didn't have depth. They just had all of these stars. And they still almost lost with all those stars. With the Lions, is C.J. Gardner-Johnson went down. Guess what? You had iffy. You had depth that you drafted. You didn't go out and spend $20 million on a corner or a safety, and you went out there and you drafted and you brought free agents in, and you like I think that's a perfect example. Actually, it's like look at the C.J. Gardner-Johnson thing. He went down. You still had your draft picks, and you had your Tracy Walker, and you had those guys that were able to step up. To where if you spent top dollar for a safety, then you're screwed. Like you might have been screwed.
And you mentioned the 49ers, Lucas, like the 49ers, like and people only look at what's been going on recently, but they don't look at, the years it took to build that core, like the Fred Warners of the world, the Nick Bosa's of the world, the Eric Armsteads, you keep going, Dre Greenlaw.
They forget when Nick Mullins was playing quarterback.
Yeah.
They forget about those days.
Yes, they do. And yes, having a guy like Brock affords you the luxury of affording more guys, but people, they had their stars locked up, secured, the guys they were most familiar with, to tie it back to what we're talking about, guys that they knew were big time players. And then they're sprinkling a little, hey, we'll go get a Chase Young. If it misses, it misses. But at least you still have Nick Bosa signed to a deal. You have Fred Warner under contract. So we're not saying they'll never be aggressive and make moves. It's going to happen at some point. Now, being desperate and putting yourself in a bad situation, I don't think Brad's going to do that financially. Like we always say,
Brad's at the right time.
Yeah, it just has to happen. It has to be at the right time. And of course, if someone goes down and you need depth, maybe he makes a trade, but that's all in the future. So I love how Brad's handling it. I think we're all on the same page here. We're going to have John Maakaron join us in a couple of minutes here to help us kind of break down more of what's been going on. But the Red Wings are up now 5-2. JT Comfort has scored a goal, assisted by Andrew Kopp and Moritz Seider. Mo Seider.
I want to throw something out there real quick.
So they're up right now going into the third period. What's up, Bill?
Should I put a bet on the Detroit Red Wings to win the Eastern Conference and the Stanley Cup?
Oh my God!
Like, what are the odds?
They're plus 4,000. So basically, plus 4,000, and that's for the East, and they're plus 7,000 to win the Stanley Cup. $10 for the East to win 400.
I think honestly,
$10 to win 700.
I don't know. I mean, it's 4,000, and maybe sprinkle. You know what I mean?
Stanley Cup
might be
7,
a little
000.
like a half a unit, Yeah,
just a little. Sprinkle a little bit. A little 10 spot, like Zachary King says. I like
put
that.
15 on it, just a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. Patrick says sprinkle so you don't regret it, but it's so competitive. Yeah, plus 4,000 is crazy.
One of my favorite things to do in sports gamblings every year is if you guys don't watch the NHL playoffs, it's electric. Like, even if you don't like hockey, it is electric. What I'll do is I'll pick 2 teams from each side and I'll put some money on them just so I have like teams to ride with. Because if it gets to the Stanley Cup playoffs and the finals, dude, I just want to be able to have some, I want to have something in on it because it's electric to watch, man.
We'll be joined here in a second. We're going to welcome in our good friend who, again, like I say, publisher of All Lions. He's a host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. He is a man who joins the show regularly, and we are very thankful for him. He's crushing it, and that is the one, the only John Maakaron. Look at that, John. Welcome to the show, John. I know. Hey, John was. Hey, look at him. He looks tan. Look at you, John. I know what you. John was. He was vacation a little bit. He's back, and we're happy to have you, John. How you feeling tonight?
Oh man, I feel good. Were you guys talking hockey? Are you guys allowed to be talking that shit here on the internet?
Yes, we are. We are, John. You know what? We think hockey's cool. That's what
the Red Wings won some games. It's time to talk a little bit of hockey.
Unlike some other people, we like hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping to see Gentry to see if he had like a 200-hour hard-on, since the Wings are top of mind with everybody locally, with Showtime, Patrick Kane doing his thing. Wings are talk of the town, man. It's great. You got Aiden Hutchinson checking out the Wings. It's a good time, man. Hockey's doing. Yzerplan, trust Steve Yzerman all the time.
Yeah, it's nice to see. You get like the David Bakhtiari at Bucks games, like the legendary just chugging beers. Now we get Aiden Hutchinson at Red Wings games chugging beers. So hey, we get to enjoy that as well. John, I want to ask you. Speaking of some big things that happened today, we got a press conference, right? Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, they met with the media. I want to ask you, what are some of your takeaways from what was said? We'll start with Dan Campbell. I spoke about Jared, mentioned Hendon Hooker. Anything significant stand out to you from what Dan Campbell talked about? Also mentioned Terrell Williams, the new defensive line coach.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love this time of year. Combine, you get another chance to talk to the Lions, the coaching staff. You talk to Brad Holmes a month after the season, so you kind of get a sense of where they're at. Real fast, tidy up some stuff in the chat. Yeah, that's an NWO hat. I'm a big wrestling fan. Love wrestling. Got belts here. And my last name is pronounced Macaroon, like the cookie. John Maakaron. Talking with the boys here. And Dan Campbell, I was excited to see. But it kind of, a little bit to me, was a little bit dull in some of the questions that were asked. Kind of took a real big view of a lot of things. But I thought that clearly what people are kind of looking at with the Lions is their philosophy, their draft and develop philosophy. People are wondering, well, a lot of teams aren't doing it that way in terms of not making a lot of splash free agent signings. And I just took it as Dan Campbell kind of explaining that, you know what? It's a kind of a straightforward philosophy. We spend a lot of time looking at players that we want to bring to this football team and cultivate in terms of young talent, guys that are hungry, that fit the mold. And going outside of that is a little bit more risky. So the Lions are more comfortable with what they know. And their model is draft, develop, and keep their own. And now with the increased salary cap, you see the first guy that gets rewarded is Jalen Reeves-Maybin. And look, this model is interesting because it causes a lot of debate in terms of can this really work to get the Lions over the hump? And it's possible. You saw them get to the NFC Championship game, but I think everybody that is a little bit skeptical wonders, in the biggest games, like against the 49ers, when the momentum is shifting, you needed somebody to make a play. Nobody was there to make the play. And so you look at it, who rises to the top in the biggest moments? Guys like Patrick Mahomes, guys that are elite talent. And so people are wondering, can the Lions' young core turn into elite talent? And so we all just want to go shopping and bring them in right away. But the Lions are showing that, hey, our model, if done properly, with better coaching and with the right pieces, can produce some good results.
Yeah, and too, John, first of all, I hope you had an amazing vacation. You look tan, look great. I need to get a vacation so I can get a little tan like you. But
hey, we're going to Indy, Booner.
We are going to Indy, so maybe there's some sun out this Friday and Saturday out there while I'm doing my combine drills. But John, kind of just to piggyback off of that then real quick, I do want to ask you, I know the whole big signing thing, I feels like there's like half of kind of the media and kind of Lions fans that are like, we think that there's going to be a big signing. We think Dan needs to, or Brad needs to do that. And then the other half, and I will say last week I was saying I think they should go out and get a big time player. And then listening to Brad and everything that's going on, I'm off that now. I'm kind of turning the tables on that. Do you think there's any sort of chance? I know you kind of answered it a little bit there, but is there any chance at all? Brad surprised us throughout drafts and throughout the last 2 or 3 seasons that he does end up just out of nowhere, a Danielle Hunter, one of these names, and just kind of throws everyone off by surprise and does this offseason.
See, here's the thing, and it's something that's real interesting in regards to how Brad Holmes has been operating, and you recognize the talent that was brought here to upgrade, and you recognize, is Danielle Hunter an asset that you believe can be productive in the critical moments? Yeah, I do think they're going to add talent, but when you look at the work that's needed, guys that I kind of think are interesting is Huff from the Jets. I feel like when you look at what the Jets were able to do defensively, you want to look there. And you want to look, I feel like we need to kind of pay attention to guys ages 25 to 27 in free agency, or those that get released that are a little bit hungry, that are kind of guys like David Montgomery, and guys that, if you look at that mold, guys that are on teams that maybe aren't as good, or guys that are potentially underrated under the radar. So I look at it like tier 2. And I just look at it like, I know, Booner, you would love it if it's, L'Jarius Sneed. You'd love it if it was Chris Jones. But here's what happens. They're all going to get franchise tag. Jalen Johnson, I would love to hear that name be sprinkled in talks with the Lions. But really, those kind of players end up staying with their teams. So I would look at players that are more tier 2, not talked about as much. But yeah, they're going to add via free agency. And Brad Holmes said it in an earlier radio interview. He said he tends to want to fill needs in free agency. So I would look at edge rusher and cornerback as positions that will be targeted. But I think that, is it going to be somebody that has been talked about extensively? Probably not. I think it's somebody similarly like David Montgomery that, hey, not talked about, but somebody that's hungry, that's going to take a fair contract and fit the mold. And that's tough to decipher because, Brad Holmes keeps those kind of things close to the vest. But it's going to be probably free agency. I would look at it and say that on defense, that's where they're going to look for free agency, tier 2 type players.
I love that.
Awesome, Doc. Love to hear it. Love to have you back on the show. We kind of talked about it. We're going to Indy this weekend. But my question to you is, you're in these media rooms, you're hearing what Brad has to say. How much do you think Brad really values the combine? Because you look, Brian Branch, his combine kind of knocked his stock down. J-Mo, he didn't even compete in the combine because he had a torn ACL, and Brad moved up 20 spots to get him. So how much do you think Brad and the Detroit Lions really value these performances at the combine.
Yeah, and look, he said it specifically. He looks at the combine as more of a way to examine and confirm what they believe. So if they think a guy's fast, they'll look at the 40 time and see, does that match with what their evaluations are? What's critical and what stinks is we don't get to see it right now. We got the first name, the edge rusher that the Lions have met with, but what is critical is the interview. And Dan Campbell said within 15 minutes, he knew Jack Campbell was a baller. He knew, like, hey, we're able to throw them interview questions, throw some zingers at them and see how they react on the fly. But the interview is key. And I think that's what the general managers are starting to say a little bit more, which is, look, we understand the NFL is a business and they want to sell advertising. They want to see workouts. They want to see what these guys do on the field, the underwear Olympics, as everyone says. But for these teams, yeah, it's more of how do we assess the fit when we do these 20-minute interviews. And based on that, I think the Lions have done a great job in regards to when you've seen the videos, you've seen how these guys talk about, hey, we go through these certain situations. What do you think is going to happen? And I do think that the benefit of having Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson together again to interview these guys, supreme. And I think that they'll find absolute guys that fit the Lions. That's the thing. The Lions have a type, and they are committed no matter what position. So when we start talking about the draft, don't be surprised if the 29th pick is on offense. Could be a wide receiver. Could be another tight end. Could be a center.
Oh, God, don't say that now.
Guys, Brad Holmes said it. He said it directly. He said, I look for free agency to fill positions of need, and I look at the draft. I look for football players. So it could be anybody. It opened it up. This next wave of mock drafts, you could see 10 different names.
Jeff, real quick, I want to kind of piggyback off that again real quick, John, because that was going to be my next question for you was a surprise pick at 29 or even in the second round. Jeff did a mock draft when we did our mock drafts yesterday. I think actually Gentry did. He took Keon Coleman at 29 and went wide receiver. And I think, and we had the conversation about when we're doing our mock drafts the next few weeks to kind of go out on a limb a couple times at 29 to try a couple of different scenarios. What's like a surprise move? Do you think they could go wide receiver, or is there like a shocking move that you would see at 29?
Well, the first thing that's going to be intriguing is, do the Lions stay at 29? You look at what they got. They got capital. They got the additional third round pick. So if Brad falls in love with somebody, I could see Brad moving up, getting an offensive lineman that he feels he covets. Yeah, I think that Brad Holmes, everything. That's why this draft is going to be so interesting. Everything is on the table. Every single thing that's possible is open. There's nothing off the table. Even, guys, I know it might surprise people, even quarterback. I've talked about it at All Lions. Even quarterback.
Wow.
If he finds a guy that fits the mold, can compete, and maybe could be the replacement, you go out there. Look, Dan Campbell said it today. He's like, it's still early on Hendon Hooker. We don't know what he is. If there's a quarterback that he finds, look, when Brad Holmes comes out and tells the media directly, don't be shocked at anything I do. It's for sustainability. You look at it and you say, I trust Brad Holmes that he can find talent in any single round of the draft. But yeah, clearly you would think that he's going to target offensive line, bolster, get depth pieces on the defense. But at the same time, if there's a player that those scouts are telling Brad Holmes, hey, this is the guy, it can be at any position. It could be another running back. So that's the great part about this year, is that it really opens up a lot of options and nothing. You guys can sit there and go, they don't need that. Brad Holmes said that's just recency bias. He said directly, the first round of mock drafts that you're all reading, including mine, they're all based on positions of need. He goes, if I find somebody that I like, I'm taking them. So that could be really anybody. That's what makes this fun, is that literally any option is on the table if a player fits. So really pay attention to the reports that come out in regards to who they're meeting with, because that'll give you a sign as to who's kind of on the early radar for the Lions.
It's interesting.
That stressed me out. Hearing tight end Hearing tight end in the first round.
J.J. McCarthy at 29. No, I'm just kidding, man.
Kind of to John's point, it's
Love that.
exactly what Brad said, right? Like free agency is used to fill holes, and the draft is used to acquire talent, to acquire the best possible talent available. And John, I want to ask you too, at least for this passing defense, and that their problem at corner. How do you think Brad will go addressing it? And how, because I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, they find their number one corner in the draft right away. It might take some time for them. They're going to have to, in my opinion, sign a corner and draft a corner. But what say you, John? How should they approach fixing this passing defense?
Well, first and foremost, they blew out the guy that was not the best in Dre Bly. So you've upgraded by getting a better coach. And I do think they've admitted, okay, you know what? Having inexperience at the cornerback spot and the defensive line coach from last year they've moved on from, that in and of itself upgrades the defense. And you realize, look, Cam Sutton's going to be the number 2. You probably are going to draft somebody that is going to be talented, but you realize in a must-win year like this year is for the Lions, cornerback is the toughest. So you could look to free agency to shore that position up. And you're absolutely right. One of each. You can never have enough cornerbacks, and you realize you're not going to go into the season with Vildor and Cam Sutton. So do you take a chance? I know people are kind of wondering, do you reunite the Gilmore brothers? And you hear that name being bantied about a little bit, but I don't like free agents being signed that are, in their 30s. I look at guys that are, a little bit younger to kind of fill that spot, but those are hard to find. I would have loved L'Jarius Sneed, but there is still hope. I know people have started to close the door on L'Jarius Sneed, but pay attention to what was reported. They're going to look to potentially franchise tag him. And then if they don't work out a deal, a trade, and that's prime for the Lions in that they have capital, they can move, they could maybe risk a player here or there. So don't close the book on L'Jarius Sneed. But at the same time, I just think that you definitely have to upgrade cornerback. They know it. They've started with the coaching, and they're going to address it, no doubt about it, in the draft and in free agency. I would believe that you're gonna need 2 or 3 more. And don't discount the cornerback that's already on the roster, the young Gilmore. Let's see what he's got too, because they, put some time into him. And the Lions, they take their time with guys that they want to develop. Let's see what he can do next year as well.
And John, what there's no chance, right? They re-signed Emmanuel Mosley, or is there a chance?
Man,
he's got 2 bad knees, John.
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed. That would be some like desperation kind of move if you get him on a real. I can't at that position. I know that people want to see what he had to bring to the table, but you can't bring him back. The risk is so high that he at that position, and this year you can't really miss at that position. You got to get a guy that's healthy. You got to get a guy that can produce. So absolutely not. I would be shocked if Emmanuel. Now look, he was there in the second half of the year, putting his 2 cents into the coaching staff and things like that. But I think that's tough to bring a guy back with those 2 injuries, man. That's tough.
Yeah, and we kind of just did a deep dive into the cornerback room, John, but the safety position with Tracy already being released and CJ Gardner-Johnson almost being released officially at this point, it kind of seems like. How do you think they address the safety room? Do you think they do it through the draft to add depth, or do you think they approach it through signing a vet in free agency?
The safety room's nice. I like the safety room. Do you bring back?
They need depth, though.
I know they obviously need depth. CJ, Gardner-Johnson, I still think might end up with the Lions. You realize, Kirby Joseph, Ifeatu Melifonwu, that's a tough position. The safety position is tough in Aaron Glenn's system. So in the draft, I think there's an opportunity as well. You look at the draft, the defensive side has a lot of nice players that you can start to evaluate. And you look at Aaron Glenn's system, they count on the safety so much. So I look at it and I say, you know what? Run it back with CD Deuce, run it back with the same 3, and you're in a good spot. And then you don't have to worry about, I know depth and things like that. You always want to sign and have enough depth at that position. But the 3 that you had were starting to do some things, and they started to with the emergence of Ifeatu Melifonwu and his ability to blitz and what he was able to do in emerge. If he can stay healthy, him and Kirby Joseph, I think we're really starting to emerge. So I would say that you know, the draft for the Lions definitely is going to, I know everybody is really fixated on the draft and getting the young players, but at the same time, for this year with where the Lions are at, with the position that they need to be in to get at least back to the NFC Championship game, you're going to want as much experience as possible. You don't want to have a guy like Aaron Glenn count on all these young rookies to make key plays. You want rookie safety to have to match up against Brock Purdy. That's going to be a tough ask. So I'm with veterans. So I'm with free agents in a lot of these, at least on defense. I'm with free agents to shore those positions up.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do. I mean, you said you wouldn't be surprised if they bring back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I'm curious. I think that's like the big domino to kind of fall this offseason, whether he comes back or not. But I do want to say thank you, John, for joining the show. We appreciate your presence. We'd like to have you on weekly if your schedule's free enough. But you can check John's stuff out. He's the host, Detroit Sports Podcast. He's the publisher of All Lions. You can follow him there. We appreciate you, Doc, and we'll have you back on soon.
Appreciate you, John.
Yeah,
thank you so much, man.
Absolutely, guys. I love coming on, man. Thank you so much. The draft is coming, and I think that you boys are definitely paying attention. You're doing your thing. Take a vacation before the draft, because once it hits, it's going to be a great ride for the Detroit Lions. Definitely pay attention and keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, I'll come on any single time you dial me up. I love talking about the Detroit Lions.
John.
And here's the thing, guys. All the debate that you can have now is there's legs to stand on. When people would say, "Oh my God, you're so far," like I wrote a story about J.J. McCarthy. I wouldn't be shocked if the Lions took J.J. McCarthy. He's a winner. So now
you wouldn't be. You wouldn't be shocked. Nope. You would not be shocked.
I would not.
John
be
isn't
shocked.
wrong. He is
Brad
a winner.
Holmes,
he is a winner.
No shock. Brad Holmes has said everything's on the table. I believe him. And J.J. McCarthy is a winner. And if he's in the right spot, I'm having this debate on multiple podcasts. I'm still deciding. I know many people think he's going to be a bust, but if you're looking at intangibles, rallying a troop, I think a discussion regarding JJ's future, you put him in the right spot. I'm starting to itch toward that intangible shit and realize this guy,
what intangible?
JJ could lead the right team if he's in the right spot.
What intangible does J.J. McCarthy have that Hendon Hooker does not?
He does have a national championship.
You can't. You expect it. Look at the team around him. Hendon Hooker's in the SEC. He beat Bama. Would have won a Heisman Trophy. He was putting up the same stats.
Whoa, Lucas. Everything you just said there does not matter. He won a national championship. Hendon Hooker did not.
My God. I'm not saying AJ McCarron, man. A.J. McCarron won one too.
I'm not saying the Lions are going to take him, but I'm just saying he did win a national championship. So what you just said, that whole point you just made, Lucas,
let's bring in Stetson Bennett.
It makes nothing. That is nothing from you, Lucas.
Grit. Hey, what quarterback did they say didn't look great? Patrick Mahomes. Look what he's doing.
I don't think he's going to be bad, but for the Lions, man, like no way.
Watch. Clip this. We're going to clip this on.
Doc's going to be sitting there.
J.J. McCarthy and his intangibles, I think, is going to be the best quarterback in this draft. J.J. McCarthy.
Okay.
Agree to disagree.
John.
Go
blue, baby.
Intangibles. I don't know. Blame Brad Holmes. Intangibles.
Thanks, John. We'll catch you soon. There you go, John.
Love you, John.
Appreciate you, John. That was awesome.
He is the best. Wow.
That was a lot. John, I think, is on the J.J. McCarthy. Like, there's the J.J. McCarthy hype train. John's trying to get on that front train.
To be fair, I'm gonna make this statement too. I do not think the Detroit Lions will take J.J. McCarthy, but if we're talking about J.J. McCarthy, Lucas, everything you said is wrong because J.J. McCarthy won a national championship. So, and at the end of the day, as well,
intangible.
At the end of the day,
that is not an intangible.
Lucas, at the end of the day, you said C.J. Stroud was going to be a bust, and he was the best rookie season of all time. So you have to wait a year before you can.
There's been plenty of quarterbacks. I was on the biggest Josh Allen hype train there was. So if we want to go through the rounds, I also said Sam Laporta was going to be a fucking stud.
Yeah.
And I was
all right. Congrats.
I said Tank Dell. If we want to go back and looking at receipts, I hit on a lot of them. I missed on CJ Stroud. But if you were to talk about what I was saying, it's what I was saying. If everything is wrong, everything it says is completely true. Intangibles are a physical thing. A ring is something you put on your finger. That's not an intangible thing. J.J. McCarthy does have intangibles. I'm not saying that, but to argue that him at 29 because of intangibles would just absolutely just.
Want to know what's crazy,
It would
Jeff?
I'm getting the
Lucas,
Jeff vein.
Relax. Relax, brother. Relax.
It's just so like.
Step back.
Ugh.
Down, brother. Come on. Luke or Jeff. I remember the one argument with CJ Stroud last year, and this is going to make it all go kind of a little full circle. Do you remember the argument that me and you actually were going at it with Lucas last year? And the thing that he kept saying was, and we kept saying, what CJ Stroud can do is elite. He has an elite arm. He has all. And the only thing. Are you going to let me finish? Let me finish.
If you're going to attack my take for saying it, if you're going to try to just say no because look at what you said.
All right. What I was saying.
Don't do that. Don't,
brother.
Do that.
We can't talk over each other. We got to talk here.
Okay, then say what you got to say.
The one thing that he said last year was CJ Stroud couldn't win. It was CJ Stroud lost in every big game. And now it's now we have to go opposite with JJ.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm just just hearing this. I don't think it's fair to bring up a take to be like, well, you were wrong about CJ, so you can't talk on quarterbacks like that. That's a little egregious. Like that's egregious. Come on. I mean, that's a little.
I love Lucas. I'm not even mad. To be honest, I'm not even mad about this. I have no Lucas just got heated.
Because Lucas's hit rate is higher than all of ours combined. So I think he's quality.
All right, but it's fair we talk about the CJ Stroud thing. That doesn't no.
Yeah, but that's one. I mean, okay, it is what it. I mean,
explain to me and real quick, since you can put me on mute, I can talk now. The fact that if you want to talk about what this was about was intangibles. Winning is not have anything to do with intangibles. You cannot have intangibles and win, aka Jared Goff. But when we're talking about intangibles, I never said J.J. McCarthy didn't have it. So the stem of this whole conversation was that C.J. Stroud had intangibles. C.J. Stroud had better intangibles than J.J. McCarthy ever had.
Can I just ask a question? How I'm the one getting? Yeah, I didn't even say the J.J. stuff. I didn't say anything.
No, but
you did.
I never said J.J. is going to be the best quarterback in this draft. That didn't come up.
No, this is what you did though.
You out on me right now.
You had a whole take that led was. Lucas, everything you just said about J.J. McCarthy was completely wrong because of intangibles, and then you decided to bring up thing that is not intangibles, and then saying I didn't like C.J. Stroud because he wasn't a winner in big games. That's not an intangible. So that's why I'm saying, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I don't know what we're doing because I'm not arguing anything. You're just going off for no reason.
Okay, hold on.
It's just like, fair, Booner's talking. Let's argue with him. He likes to argue. I don't like to argue. I don't want to argue. I didn't say anything about J.J. Move on.
Don't
just move on.
Yeah,
I never said JJ's the best quarterback in the draft.
No, Booner,
you're literally taking the John stuff out on me. Relax, Lucas. Take a step back.
No, it's not. I know it's not at all.
Let's just move on.
Yeah, well, I do. I want to move on here because speaking of quarterbacks, speaking of intangibles, kind of projecting some of the quarterbacks in this class moving forward next year. I saw this, and Booner said this to me actually, and I don't know why the hell this is even a thing. I don't know why it's a thing. FanDuel decided to come out with a quarterback ranking. It's way too early. Next year, quarterback rankings. And this is who they have. Okay, let's just react to this. And I want your guys' thoughts on where guys are ranked. This is Rook. This is like before most quarterbacks have played a snap. Here it is. Number one, Mahomes. That's obvious, right? Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. I don't even care about where they're ranked. I think with the top five quarterbacks, Matthew over Herbert's a little aggressive, but I'll keep going. They have Caleb Williams at 12, which, you guys know how I feel about Caleb Williams. I'm not even going to sit here and try and argue it. Is that fair to do? No, it's not. I don't think he's better than Aaron Rodgers or Jared Goff as a rookie. I don't. I do think he would be probably a little after back half of the NFL, but that's just me. But the fact that you have let's see here, you have Fields at, I want to make sure I get this right. Fields at 20. You have Richardson. You have Drake May at 21. He's ahead of Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Bryce Young, J.J. McCarthy, who we'll talk about in a second, and Will Levis. They have Jaden Daniels at 23. Okay, ahead of Deshaun Watson, ahead of Baker, ahead of Russell Wilson, ahead of Derek Carr. Then they have J.J. McCarthy at 31. The only quarterback in front of him, or excuse me, behind him, is Will Levis, your guy, Booner. which I think is actually I don't even know why he's 32nd. He actually didn't look bad last year, to be honest. And I didn't really even like Will Levis. So it is what it is. But when you see this, guys, what the hell? What are we doing here? How can you even project rookies? And why is and again, J.J. McCarthy at 31? And this isn't even defending JJ, but why is everyone else so far ahead of him? I don't get it. Anything you would agree with here that you don't hate?
I mean, this is just projecting more than anything. It just the one that actually makes me the most mad is Geno Smith ahead of Jared Goff after watching how Geno Smith just finished the season. Geno Smith, it's not like he's a terrible quarterback, but he's in a great situation, and it looked like he peaked his first year that he really shined there. So to have him just consistently sometimes in front of Jared Goff just blows my mind because his struggles have been way worse than Jared Goff's, and his highs have not even touched the highs of Jared Goff when you talk about their careers.
I'm going to be honest. Okay, this is gonna spark some conversation. Caleb Williams.
I thought you were gonna say something about Geno.
No, well, no, that's already. I don't even have to say it because we're all in lockstep. Geno Smith, man, he is one of the most overrated quarterbacks I think in the league in general. But Caleb Williams, I'll say this right now, okay, and you can clip this. I don't care; it'll be funny, but I'm standing on business here. I think Caleb right now. Let's go through it. I think, Booner's going to hate this, but I think the Tennessee Titans would take him right now over Will Levis. I'll keep going here. Let's go through it. Now you got me. Now I'm going to cook. All right, ready. I think Tennessee would take him. I think Atlanta would take him. I think even Carolina would take him. I think the Saints would take him. I think the Raiders would take him. I think the Broncos would take him. I think the Giants would take him. And we're already at 7. So,
all of these teams would take.
So,
Caleb
Browns, right now, Deshaun Watson, you could probably make an argument, but that one probably go either way.
I mean, if they could move on from Deshaun Watson tomorrow and they could go Caleb Williams, they would swap that out.
Well, what you're saying, starting over their current quarterback. Do you think it's fair? Maybe I won't do that to Deshaun right now. Maybe you could.
I would.
You would? Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe 100%. We can do that. So that's 8. Baker Mayfield. I know they would take him over Baker. The Patriots would take him over Baker. The Colts, I think, would take Caleb Williams over Anthony Richardson. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they like the potential there. I don't know. But we're at 11. Drake May I think Washington. That's a no-brainer. Would take him. Steelers would take him. The Dolphins would absolutely take him. Kyler Murray, that one, if you gave them an option, maybe they lean Kyler because they're
Kyler Murray on steroids, man.
But yeah, they would take him. They can tweet, he's our guy all they want. They also tweeted out Josh Rosen was their guy. But I do think the Cardinals would take him. San Francisco would take him. And now we're into this top 15, 16 area where it does get tricky. I think these guys would stay. I think Geno, they would take Caleb over Geno. So, yes. And I'll leave the rest as it is. Kirk, we'll just put him in Minnesota. We'll leave hhim alone. We'll just say we'll just act like he's in Minnesota. That's 17 teams, guys. 17 teams would take Caleb over their current starter. He is already, that's why I said he's probably closer. He's back half, but in the front of the back half of the NFL. As a rookie, maybe he won't display it right away. But I promise you, I'm not even going to say he's the next Mahomes. I think that's ridiculous to even compare him to arguably the greatest quarterback who's on track to be the greatest quarterback or even one of the greatest quarterbacks right now. But he'll be, and people keep saying he's going to be a bust. No, he's not. He's not going to be a bust. He's going to be a top 15 to 17 quarterback year 1 or year 2. I book that, guys. I believe that.
No, I don't hate it. I think what it comes down to, and where Caleb Williams is just automatically set up for failure, is for him to be qualified as a hit, he needs to be in the Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, and what's going to be now Stroud category. If he does not hit that, he's going to be qualified as a bust just because of the hype that comes out of the draft. But to say him being a top 15 to 17 quarterback, I think a lot of it depends on where he lands. Because If he lands in Chicago, it's Matt Eberflus, as much as I love him, we know that that's not an offensive heaven by any means. I know he has DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. Hopefully they bring in another running back and they have 2 first-round picks. So there's a lot that they can add there. But if he struggles in a situation like Chicago, it wouldn't surprise me, especially with, you can say what you want about him as a football player with his skill. I don't know as far as him be able to take an NFL franchise year one if there's a lot of turmoil with his confidence, because there's still going to be some development for Caleb Williams, and he needs to be in a good situation to develop for him to just reach that, even close to that ceiling that he has, because he's in a competitive division in the NFC North.
Mm-hmm. Did you like that? What do you think about the take, Boone? I think, like I said, to kind of recap, I just went through every team that I think he'd be a starter over right now. So I think he'll be a top 15 to 17 quarterback year 1 or 2.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where they have him. What did they have him at 12 instantly?
Yeah, which is too high.
Was it? It's too high. Yeah, like to have him at 12 instantly without playing an NFL game, to me, it's just is kind of absurd. And I see Adam in the chat too as well. And my first thought goes to like situation. It's like being in Chicago. Like, is that the best situation you want to start your NFL career? Probably not. Not especially with Matt Eberflus. Like, it just doesn't seem like a great situation. And to say that just right away, he can just sit there and just be a top 12 quarterback in the NFL tomorrow. That to me, it's like maybe not. Like, he was just at USC and he struggled last year. Now, does he have like potential? Like, could he do that? Does he have everything to do that? Maybe. Like you saw what CJ Stroud went and did last year as a rookie. Like, maybe he can go out there and put up numbers and do that. So, but to put him over like Jared Goff instantly and some of these guys just instantly, kind of crazy. The Will Levis thing too, by the way, 32nd. Will Levis actually tweeted out and he said he's taking notes. Like he quote tweeted this actually and said like I'm taking notes on this.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, Will Levis. I think Bryce Young, and I like Bryce. I to say that Bryce Young is a complete bust is a little overreaction. That's an overreaction, but based on what his situation was, which again, situation matters. It always does with quarterbacks, especially
as a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, as a rookie. And I think Caleb in Chicago, just to recap that point, I think Bryce should be 32nd based on last year. But I do think he'll improve.
Kenny Pickett.
He only can improve. He literally hit the floor. So
can you throw that out up there again real quick as well? And I don't know if you two would like.
What I was going to say real quick is situation does matter. And I think Chicago, to be fair, is not, the best situation. But also neither was Jacksonville. Until they got Doug Peterson, they got an offensive coach. So the coaching thing is kind of, that's important. So I don't know. Can Caleb Williams overcome bad coaching?
No, no, absolutely not.
But I do think if we're talking about situation, the Bears have 2 top 10 picks. They have DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. They drafted a tackle last year. Like, they're putting it together on offense, and they're going to have more assets to do that this year. So we'll see. And they have money.
And the fact here too on this list that like Geno Smith, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott is all over Jared Goff is just, that's absurd. It's just whoever makes these lists, it's just not right. Like, Jared Goff just had a better season than all of them, and he's only probably going to get better, and that the team is only going to get better. Ben Johnson coming back, so like having him at 14 behind Geno Smith, and those guys, Dak and Jalen, and as well as Caleb Williams, that's just wrong. It's just a wrong. The list is just completely all just a fraud. It's a fraud list. All frauds. And Will Levis is 32nd.
You know who's not a fraud, though? Never is a fraud. Is the ball knower. Because it's time for the ball knower breakdown. It's time for the ball knower breakdown.
Let me get it out.
Well, we have a prospect to highlight today, just like Lucas always does. It's the ball knower breakdown. The tie comes out. Lucas, you had Xavier Legette last time, which we enjoyed. It's been the talk of town. Who do you got today?
Listen, I brought up the safety position to the doc, John. I think the Lions need to go get a safety. I do. I really do. And if there's a guy that I think can make a difference, even not week 1 as a starter, but week 1 as a rotational player, and then if an injury happens, step in and make a difference, is Calen Bullock, the safety out of USC. Look, as a freshman, All-American. And you can say what you want about Pac-12 defenses, but Pac-12 offenses, They air that bitch out. In the Pac-12, you go and look, it's air raid offense, spread offense. All they do is they just throw the ball in the Pac-12. So he's had, in the last 3 seasons, he had 9 interceptions, 16 pass breakups. So he's a great ball hawk. He's 6'3". And when I look at him, I was like, he kind of reminds me of Kirby. And then I watched him hit. And he hits like Javon Holland. And Jeff, you know I love Javon Holland. Booner, you know I love Javon Holland. What was he? A Pac-12 safety. Where did he get picked? The second round. Calen Bullock's going to get picked in the second round as well. He's a long safety that can play in the box at strong safety need him to. But if something happens to Kirby, you can play this man at free safety. He's going to test well at the combine. He's fundamentally in the open field, great tackler. The one thing that I will say that he could struggle with is he's very aggressive. So when you talk about adjusting from college to NFL speed, that's an adjustment for any rookie. But when you're an aggressive DB, especially, which will help that he's rotational, of course, but when you're talking about in the run game, when you're trying to smack somebody, that's different from trying to tackle Travis Dye out of Oregon. And now you got Aaron Jones running at you. There's a difference. So I think there will be some mistakes, especially when he's trying to make a play on a ball at first. But when you talk about a guy learning behind Brian Branch, learning behind Kirby Joseph, this is a guy that can really blossom in the system. And I think he fits what Aaron Glenn tries to do because he's very versatile. This guy in the second round, if they don't go wide receiver, I hope it's Calen Bullock.
Yeah, he seems to me, guys, just kind of do, because when you broke him down, you posted it on our Twitter, and we mentioned him before. Calen Bullock is intriguing because of the statistics, right? Like the interceptions, the defensive touchdowns, open field, like the open field tackling, but also there's the part of it where you mentioned it. He can get a little aggressive, especially like a guy like that who's a playmaker. He's going to try and jump plays, which leads also to, allowing big plays like the USC defense kind of did. But it's not like he was playing with the best unit ever anyway, the Pac-12, which is like a shootout historical conference. So I like Calen Bullock. He would probably be what you'd say a second round pick. So
yeah, I would be surprised if he fell out of the second round. I mean, I know Eric Gentry, shout out Gentry. That's the other safety out of USC, and he's without a doubt. We're talking about Calen here. He's without a doubt the best USC safety in the draft. He's an intangible guy, and he also has production to go with it. And he showed it since he stepped foot in the Pac-12 when he won an All-American his freshman year.
I see right here, he was targeted 44 times. He allowed 26 receptions for a pass rating of 97. Allowed 5 TDs, but also intercepted 2. So it's kind of again, for a playmaker like that. And that's the thing that gets brought up with a guy like CJ. And CJ's a great tackler. He gives up some plays, but he'll make it up by his playmaking. So there's trade-offs there. Young player.
I'm going to say this too with that is I did see the film, like Lukas did a breakdown, like great player. To me, if he's in the second round, I'm just kind of on the opposite side of getting a safety in the second round. Like I just think there's different needs to where and I know we talk about needs, but Brad Holmes did say like he's not worried about needs. He's just more so just wants wants the players. But it's still to me, it's like, hey, you do need defensive line. You need to, get a wide receiver like in the second round or something like that, to where we already do have a pretty good safety room, to where maybe that's not as focused in the second round. That's just where I'm at, but I could be off on that. I mean, if you can get him in the third round, I don't know. Maybe unless Brad adds another second round pick or makes a move to get him. But
my whole thing is I think people are taking the safety room for granted right now because of what they saw this season. And what they saw this season was a great rotation. But at the beginning of the season, Tracy Walker was making plays. He was an impact player in that first stretch of the season. And then now he's gone. Again, a veteran presence who wasn't there in the late season, but C.J. Gardner-Johnson was. And when they were able to run 4 safeties, yes, they're going to get better at defensive line help, but what is Aaron Glenn? He was a former cornerback in the NFL. What his strength is secondary. So I think, in my opinion, obviously this is my opinion, Brad's not going to share the same one probably, safety and wide receiver are very similar in needs, especially when you look at top 5 offense, secondary that needs help. Why would you, and again, I see the side of it, but when you talk about importance, add depth to what is already a strength or add depth to what is going to be a need, especially if he's had injury history. Kirby, he's a very aggressive player, especially when you talk about hitting tight ends. He injures himself a lot. Sometimes he comes back into the game, but he has injury history. If one of those two goes down, okay, now you put Brian Branch in there. Okay, now you need cornerback help. If you draft a safety that can be versatile, that fills a lot of risk for Aaron Glenn. The whole point of this offseason, in my opinion, for Brad Holmes outside of the offense is putting Aaron Glenn in a position to succeed. That is what he has to do because he's not been able to do what he wanted to do. If you give him more depth in that safety room, which was thriving last year, that puts him in a great position to succeed. So that's my whole thinking behind it.
Yeah, any fear? Maybe not fear, but concern there. John brought it up too, having a young safety core. Let's say they don't bring back CJ, and they let's just say hypothetically they draft a Calen Bullock, which I'm with Booner. I don't think they'll draft, and I think you would agree with that. I don't think they draft a safety in round 2. Maybe they do. I mean, who knows? None of us can predict Brad. Any concern with that? Having a young safety room?
When you look at the wide receivers in this division, absolutely. You can name 4 wide receivers on any given day for the Green Bay Packers. Justin Jefferson, at least it looks like next year. I don't see them trading him. I know there's noise around it, but that's not going to happen for a little while. So you have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. You can even add in TJ Hawkinson to that equation. Chicago, you have DJ Moore. They're probably going to draft a top 10 wide receiver as well. And then you have Cole Kmet. When you look at safeties, tight ends are huge because who are they manning up on? And then Green Bay, they just got Luke Musgrave. Safety, right. And in the run game as well in the NFC North, when you're going into Chicago, when you're going into Lambeau late in the season, you need as much help in the run game as you can get. So safety, and then I'm not saying you guys saying that people like add to the safety room like Iffy, Kirby, okay, not who after that. You look at the teams, especially like the Dallases, when Philadelphia was really good, they have multiple safeties to go around there because safeties are versatile. You can plug them in at linebacker if you need to, if there's an injury to your linebacker room. There's a lot of ways that you can use them that I don't think people think about.
We got a donation here coming in, and we have a member announcement, which I want to read. Dante151 member for 1 month. Thank you, Dante. He says, it is now Flyers 3, Lightning 1 in the third period, and Red Wings 8, Capitals 3 in the third, and Golden Knights 4, Maple Leafs 1. Some great hockey on tonight. And just to kind of give also Timothy, shout out to Tim. He says, wow, Red Wings best team right now, 8-3 with time left. Let's go Red Wings. Thank you for the $5, Timothy. We appreciate you, man.
Shout out.
And just to kind of give an update, yeah, they are up 8-3 late in the third period. It's early Christmas at LCA. I mean, you got what? How many guys with different guys with goals? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys with different 7 different guys with a goal or more. Gostisbehere has 2 goals. But you have Comfort, DeBrincat, Fabry, Larkin, Raymond, Valino. Wow, it's a shootout, but only for one team. It's 8-3 right now, late in the third period. So Red Wings they're buzzing.
I wonder if those odds that I just put in are going to change at the end of the game.
It certainly will. The Caps they're a good team, and they're spanking them right now, absolutely dominating them. They scored 3 goals in the third period, 6 goals in the last 2 periods. That's crazy. Jeez, and it's going to be now, I mentioned a 5-game winning streak yesterday. They win, which they are. It'll be 6.
Team's buzzing, man.
This team says Stevie's first 6-game winning streak with the Red Wings as the GM. Yeah, this Red Wings team, man.
They still can make moves at the deadline to keep getting to even get even better. Like, that's great. They're going to be good. They're going to be a team to watch out for. I'm excited.
And it's funny because, we
playoff hockey in Detroit.
We mentioned the stat yesterday where if the Red Wings allow like 2 or less or 3 or less goals, they have a good record, great record, because so many different guys are so dangerous as it is. Like they allowed 3 goals, and that came in the second period for the most part, and they still are up 8-3. So it didn't even matter, to be honest with you. It just didn't even matter. That's a good job, Lucas. Calen Bullock.
Calen Bullock,
keep an eye on it. Yeah, gonna have to keep an eye on it.
Player. You know who? Hey, Tufungo. We love him. You know where he was out of? USC. Mm-hmm. USC. Their safety history, it's pretty rich. Just saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dark Flame says trade deadline is March 8th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. We'll be having guests on to kind of help us break that down too. Some prominent Red Wings content creators and/or media members. So that'll be fun. We'll have Steve Yzerman live while he's making trades.
That's super.
And then we have Michael Gentry, of course, who covers the Red Wings, and he is access, and he'll be down at LCA for most games. So that'll be fun. So we got a lot of resources to be able to do Red Wings content. And like I said, we just posted a Red Wings video on our channel today, so you can go check that out. It's doing pretty well. Dark Flame says D-Mac ? Well, as long as his interests don't interfere, we'd love to have D-Mac. Absolutely would love to have D-Mac. But to kind of change the conversation really quickly here, because the Red Wings are going to secure this thing, and it's going to be great. We mentioned Caleb Williams earlier, or I did, because I am a big Caleb Williams guy. I think he's going to be really good in the league. It's funny because at the Combine, all these general managers have an opportunity to speak to the media And Ryan Poles spoke to the media, and, you know, he had an interesting slip up, a very, very interesting slip up, which is something that as a rookie GM, now in a second year, I guess, or is it second year, third year,
No,
whatever it
it's
is,
third.
first time GM, regardless, first time GM.
I haven't seen this yet, so I'm really interested to see because I've been all against Ryan Poles for a while.
So look at what he says here, and tell me if you notice what stands out.
That cause is there anxiety that comes with that for someone who didn't have to deliver that sort of news?
No, because I have faith in our ability to communicate with our guys, and when we do that, I think they'll know that it's in the best interest of the team. And I think as we've moved along here, I think the trust factor is there that they're in good hands with however we decide to.
When you
two more guys,
You've made big trades.
See, okay,
That cause
I'll ask you
anxiety that
guys.
comes with that for someone-
I know it was a little hard to hear, but did you catch what he said?
I couldn't really hear that well.
So essentially, he said, when we do that, mentioning Justin Fields being traded. And typically you don't say that. You say, you know, if we go that route, this is what we do. He said, when we do trade him. So there you go. You just showed your deck of cards.
He said when?
Yes.
Interesting.
He says, and when we do that, that's a slip. So I think it's pretty much it's a given. It should be a given. Like Caleb's better than Justin Fields. He just is. You can tell me I'm wrong all you want, but I this was always the path for the Bears. Always the trade. But you don't say that because then you lower his value. You lower Justin Fields. Once they know you're going to trade him, the asking price you don't have the advantage. You don't have the, I guess advantage would be the right word.
No, yeah. Fields has no leverage, and I think maybe to where he wants to go, maybe they're like, look, you're gone, but what teams you want to try to go to or reach out to him? That's the only Fields leverage that's there right now. Yeah. It's a matter of time. I would be absolutely mind blown if the Bears do not trade Justin Fields. I think if they hang on to Justin Fields, this will be Ryan Poles' last year as the Bears GM. Because he's not going to – I don't think there will be another step from Justin Fields this year, regardless of who they take in the draft.
So this report came out a little bit ago at 8:30, actually, while we were live. The Falcons have reached out to the Bears in regards to Justin Fields and are emerging as the top destination for him per NBC Sports. The Falcons have long been rumored as one of the potential top landing spots if the Bears do end up trading Fields. So, and we've talked about this on this show a couple times, him going to either Pittsburgh or Atlanta. And kind of, I think we actually all agreed that Atlanta had kind of the weapons and everything that felt like would be a good kind of position for him. And we also talked about Kirk Cousins potentially to Atlanta as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'm on the board to where obviously being in the NFC North and the Detroit Lions, it's like you don't want them to get Caleb Williams because if he turns out to be what everyone says he is, that's tough to have to deal with in the NFC North for years to come. But if I'm being non-biased and I was the GM of the Chicago Bears, my move would be to do that. Is I personally would probably go Caleb Williams and then go get another elite weapon for him with that other top 10 pick. And kind of that seems to be kind of, I think would be the best move for them to make. I just don't see though. I know DJ Moore came out, I think yesterday or the day before and said that, I don't know if he personally said it, but he mentioned that he would rather have Justin Fields. I don't know. Did you guys see that report where he kind of came out and said like
No. I mean, I'm sure he does.
Kind of side by side with Justin Fields. Like as soon as he got traded, him and Fields started throwing together, and they formed a good relationship. So like, if you do make that trade, like I feel like everything's going to be in factor, like brought into play here to where like DJ Moore, like if you trade Fields, is your star receiver going to be mad? Like how is all that going to work out? But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how the kind of everything falls in place with that.
Yeah, Raheem Morris just came out and said today too, quote, if we had better quarterback play, I probably would not be standing here at this podium. So like that just straight up, just a shot right at Desmond Ridder, which like, I mean,
God. Is he still on the roster?
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough.
I mean, he's
That's
not wrong
tough.
though. That's a fact though. Like I think when he kind of said that, because I saw that too, and in my head I'm like, wait a second, I feel like he didn't mean it like maybe going at him, but he was just more so like, hey, if like they won 8 games with bad quarterback play, Like, imagine if they had anything, they would have won 10-11, and they wouldn't have got Arthur Smith wouldn't have gotten fired.
Yeah, like doesn't.
The wild move though.
Or
You
just get
know they're
beaten
getting a
on
new
the ball
quarterback at that
consistently.
point.
Yeah,
that
like
too.
it doesn't take a genius to kind of know what the situation was in Atlanta. I think Fields to Atlanta makes a lot of sense. I know they mentioned it that quarterback's their number one priority for the Falcons because they have a pretty good roster. I mean, defensively, you probably want to add another edge, which Dallas Turner makes a lot of sense there. But real quick before we get into the more conversation, because I am going to talk about in a second here and bring up to you guys the Packers GM, Brian
Gunther.
Yeah, Gunther Kunst. God, jeez, what I hate that guy. But here's some. We got some.
Bum.
Jonte 151. Thank you for the $10. Just one of the goals for the Wings came past the one of the legs of a Capital and got deflected in by Fabry. It was sick, and the Red Wings won 8-3. Dante, I like the profile picture by the way. It's got Stevie Y on there. Yeah, let's go Red Wings, man. I'm going to go back and watch the game after, probably later tomorrow, because I do want to. I do 8-3. Like that is an ass whooping, an absolute ass whooping. So, and I got some buddies that are at the game tonight, so that's awesome. Shout out to Evan and Jake. I think Evan was actually in the chat too.
Oh, shout out to fellas, man.
Yeah, to pivot here, I want to bring up the Packers GM and what he had to say because the Lions posted, a photo on their social media, them hanging the banner. And at Ford Field, it was already hung up, and I think they said something like, just hanging some new things in the house, whatever it was. It was kind of funny. And then you had the Packers GM come out, and I don't think it was directly about, that. It says right here, and this is SI.com. This is actually John Maakaron, All Lions. And I'm reading this, and it says in the article, however, General Manager Brian Gutekunst made a decision during his media availability at the Combine, directed at Lions' decision to hang the banner commemorating the team's division title in 2023. So it was in response to them hanging a banner. And he says, around here, we've never hung banners for division championships, so it's never been about that. It's a nice starting point, but I think we're always looking for better things. That was what he said about the banner being hung up. Now, to kind of talk about what I talked about earlier, you guys had Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, one of the probably the most talented quarterback, most accurate ever. And you have one Super Bowl appearance and one Super Bowl to show for it. So you have one banner celebrating a Super Bowl. Not saying that we have any room to talk. But don't sit here and act like winning a division isn't a big deal. It's a huge deal, especially for the Lions, but just in general. I know the Packers are used to it because the division was so bad for so long, and you had by far the best quarterback. But dude, what are we doing? What are we doing here? I think that's just basing off Brian's resume as a GM and how he's handled stuff with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they had Brett Favre before Aaron Rodgers. They have two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. A little ignorant, in my opinion. Like, I get what he's saying, but like, it's clearly a shot. You could have just been like happy, it's cool. It is what it is. Now he had to say like, no, we're hanging up Super Bowl banners. We have that in mind. It's like, dude, what have you won? I mean, the last time it's been over a decade since you hung up a Super Bowl banner. Like, you have no legs to stand on. What are you talking about?
I agree with you on that. And I hate the Packers, and as a leader of the Booner path and the path of going to win a Super Bowl, I'm going to say this: we just got to go win a Super Bowl. Like, at the end of the day, like, it's just whatever he says. Like, I really don't care. Like, we just won our first division since the '90s. So I don't like the comment. Like, he could have just probably avoided it and gone about it a different way. Obviously, it was a shot for no reason. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna call a spade or whatever that saying is. They have 12 NFC North championships and we have one. So like, I'm just gonna leave it at that and say, like, to shut people like that up, you just go win a Super Bowl and you just shut people like that. Go get the most recent one. It's like the thing with the Michigan Ohio State thing. It's Ohio State had the upper hand forever. It's like, just go win a national championship and move on. Like, people are gonna say stuff. He's gonna make comments. It's whatever. I don't hate the comment. like they do have 12 to our 1 when it comes to the NFC North. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh man, like they had, you know what I mean? But I get it, but he probably could have gone about it a different way and just go win the Super Bowl and just shut these guys up. When was like you said, Jeff, when was the last time they won one? But like, what do you do at that point? You guys see what I'm saying here? Like, it's just like,
Yeah, no, I'm not.
They
even
do
gonna
have
argue.
12. They do have 12 to 1. Like they've won 12 of them. So I get the comment. Like I get the
But
comment.
but Brian wasn't there for every single one of those.
No,
divisions.
not
Like,
at all.
so
But it's just like
he's acting like he built this, amazing. They haven't won a Super Bowl with Brian. Brian is
They had
GM.
last time I checked. What did they make it? They made it to the NFC Championship with Rodgers. What year was that? When they got spanked on. But Brad Holmes and Gunther have been to the same amount of NFC championships. Brad Holmes this year traded up with Gunther and took Brian Branch when they needed a safety. Brad Holmes built the same team that sent Aaron Rodgers out of this division. He understands that times are different right now because when the Vikings were winning the division, you didn't hear any of this noise. But when the Lions are, you got something to say. It's because you feel threatened. He's sitting on his high horse right now, but it's one of those things where it's like you're comfortable because of the situation you're in. But there's a situation just across the pond that's a lot better than what you got going on right now, and you're not willing to face that noise just quite yet because they didn't make it to the Super Bowl.
I mean, let's be
the comment. The comment's just very unnecessary. You know, like it's just very unnecessary.
Like
I get where he's coming from, but it's unnecessary.
But and again, Brian Gutekunst, he's been with the Packers for a while. But as a GM, he's only been there since 2018. Which that was initial. He brought in Matt LaFleur, and Matt won 13 games 3 years in a row. Had Aaron Rodgers. He was an MVP. Like, yeah, you have Aaron Rodgers, and you still couldn't get over that. You still didn't make a Super Bowl. You didn't win a Super Bowl. Hey, I'm not even talking the banner. Like a Super Bowl banner is huge. I'm not even saying, oh, you got one Super Bowl. Like, no, obviously Lions fans, including people like us who cover the Lions. Like one Super Bowl is better. It's way better than none. Like I'm not even saying like that.
That's why
it's not about that. But it's like, who are you? Who are you, Brian? You had Aaron. You walked into Aaron Rodgers, like who had multiple MVPs with the head coach you hired. Good job. But like, let's not act like Brian's built this, well-oiled machine. Like that's why
he couldn't sniff Brad Holmes' shoes.
That's
why if Brad Holmes is walking in the mall, he's asking him if he can shine his shoes, and Brad's going, nah, I got 10 more pairs of these at home. I don't need you to shine my shoes. He's a shoe shiner in the mall. Yeah, it's like if Brett Veach came out and was like, yeah, that's cute, I'd be like, you're right, Brett Veach. Like I got nothing for you. But Brian Gutekunst, you kidding me? Goofball.
Like
bona fide goofball.
What's up, Boone?
I'm just gonna be honest with you guys here. I'm not getting roped into all of this. We've won one division, went to one. Like I'm gonna be the one that's standing on the it's the Booner. Like I say, I stand on the front line of the Booner path. I'm gonna be the one like, let's stay grounded here for a second, fellas. Like I get Brian Gutekunst. I get it.
What's not grounded? I'm not saying the Lions.
I'm just like
I've never said that. Yeah, that's.
I know, grounded. But like we've won one division, and now we're all like let's go win a Super Bowl. Let's go win back-to-back divisions. Let's go. Like I get it. Like I do get it. Like if I was in a program for 15 years and we won 10 divisions and we went to multiple NFC championship games and Super Bowls, and there was a team that came in and just 1 year they won one division and then they hung a banner and someone asked me about it, I'd be like, yeah, for sure. Even if you weren't the GM, but you were just in the building and you were a part of that organization, I probably would be like if this was flipped and the Detroit Lions had all of those divisions and I was in that building for 15 years and experienced all those and won a Super Bowl, and then the Packers won one division and they put that up and then someone asked me and they approached me about it, I probably would have the similar comment. I'm being honest with you guys here.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. Like we've won one and I'm the Booner Pat. Like I'm like, we're going to win 2 Super Bowls in the next 6 years. We're going to go dominate. We're going to probably go win 5 divisions in the next 7 years. Like I'm all in on that. I'm the front line of that. But like,
look at that.
You're
more
one
division
fellas.
title. I mean, with Brian, it's like
he's been there though. Like he's been there. He's been a part of the organization.
Okay.
I'm just saying. I'm just like, I'm not. You guys know me. I'm typically the slappy here. I'm just saying, like, fellas, I get the goons to goons thing. We got it. We got to take a step back here. We've only won one. Let's go win some. Let's go win some. Hey, let's go get the job done next year. Let's go win a Super Bowl, and then let's ask this question to Brian Goons to Goons.
Goons to goons. Yeah, it's not even about like
we know we're better than them right now. We know we're ever better. Like, who does Brian Goons to Goons got? We know what we are. We know that they're here and we're here. We don't need banners to tell us that. They have them. We don't. Who cares? We're better right now.
That was the point I was trying to make.
It is, and I'm just like, I don't really care. Like, dude, yeah, they have banners. Awesome.
Cool.
We have to go get more. Let's go get more.
Win a Super Bowl, and then hey, we're hanging there. We're in the room with Brian Gunst, whatever his name is. We're hanging with him. We win one. We're with Brian.
I bet you Aiden Hutchinson and them, when they walk into Lambeau Field, guess what? They look at all those Super Bowl and those World Champion things, and they go, "We want one of those in our building." That's what they want.
Yeah.
Lock in, stay on the path. Let's go win a Super Bowl next year, and then we can have this gooch conversation, boys. Screw that guy.
Yeah. And again, I'm not even counting the success. And you could count it, I guess, but like that's why the success he had when he was a part of the organization. It's like, bro, you were a part of the group project and got an A. Like, I mean, what are you talking about? It's not like Brian's over there, hey guys. Yeah, this is what we should do. No, like, hey Brian, can you get us a cup of coffee? The adults are going to talk. Thank you. And then he walks outside and gets coffee. So Brian did. No, in all seriousness, I don't even know who Brian Goose is, so it's probably a nice guy. But that comment was unnecessary. Eduardo, we'll start mailbag. We'll get to it. Eduardo says that Packers GM is the same one who had to make a statement about us taking over their stadium week 4. F the Packers forever, always.
Yeah, I hate the Packers. They're by far my least favorite NFC North team because the Bears have never been anything really. I understand the Lions haven't, but the Bears historically since after 1985 have been nothing.
Coach Walk. I love the profile picture, by the way.
That'd be weak.
Side of me and Gentry. Mailbag, who wins the championship first? Lions, Red Wings, Pistons, or Tigers?
Lions.
Yeah,
I'll go Lions, Red Wings, Tigers, Pistons. Lions,
Tigers, and Pistons.
Yeah, no, it'll be Lions, Red Wings, Tigers.
Yeah.
No Pistons.
Pistons won't win one for like bare minimum 15 years.
50.
Bare minimum.
They may never win one. That Pistons are in such shambles. They are right now. They're not even competing to like do anything. They're competing to be the worst franchise in all of sports. Not even just the NBA, in all of sports. It is the most embarrassing thing of all time. What's going on with the Pistons? It is so embarrassing.
Something's telling me to
stop.
No. I'm not going Pistons. The Pistons are in their own atmosphere. Something's telling me the Red Wings are going to get the Stanley Cup first.
Wings they're right there, but I think the Lions get the Super Bowl next year. I don't think I did just put the Wings bet on.
I think the Red Wings in the next. I mean, we've seen crazy things happen, but I don't know about this season. Could be wrong. But I'm buying the Red Wings stock, man. I'm buying the Red Wings stock. And then the Pistons and Tigers, they just go in the corner.
Tigers, Pistons.
Yeah. I mean, first two are really all I care about, to be honest with you.
I mean, hey, real quick, too, I was thinking about this on my drive home today. Are the Pistons now trending to what the Lions were for like that 30-year stretch? That's kind of what the Pistons. Yeah, like I was like, dude. And how are people okay with what's happening? Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, the Lions were so bad for so long, and they kept switching regimes. Like, and like the Pistons and Troy Weaver, and this regime's been there for years now. And it's just like, dude, they're on the same trajectory as the Lions were for that long. And the Pistons, dude, they have historic, like, they've won championships. Like, this isn't like a team that's never won like the Lions. Like, they've won, and they're just letting it burn to the ground. It is so embarrassing to me. It's disrespectful to like former players and coaches and fans. Like it's crazy the way that they're letting this thing. I'm sorry, we didn't need to get in the Pistons rant.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts, not enough time. That's how I feel about it. Big Con 51 mailbag. Guess Brad's first pick correctly and win a giveaway. Maybe we'll do something.
That'd be a good one,
especially at 29. Heck, that'd be a good one.
We're not going to do
yeah.
one of those big money giveaways, though, boys. I don't know about that.
Yeah. No,
Sorry, that wasn't funny.
no.
We should
And
do
if
like when the player's jersey comes out, you get his jersey.
Yeah, that's actually a good one. I like that. Well,
Yeah,
only
boy,
one
right,
winner,
too.
though. Imagine if there's like 15 guesses that get it right. Oh, that'd be tough.
Oh,
Boys
yeah.
are-
Hey, we followed through though.
we
follow
would for sure, but like we would be taking back bottles or something to make sure we get the top.
Dat Boy Roy 2.0 Mailbag. Are you guys excited about the Tiger season? We are, and we got some, especially guys like Chris Castellani, Raj, Castillo. We got some guys that can join the show. That would be great guests to help us talk Tigers and kind of break it down, give some insight. So those are the best to me in the
won a
entire
division
community.
this year too.
Yeah. Mailbag, Eduardo, Jeff, one day, can you please let us be delusional and stop trying to reason with us, especially if we are talking about Chicago and Green Bay? Pretty please. Hey, Eduardo. So, I'm trying to be the voice of reason. All right. So I try to do for the people. You guys can feel however you want. Hey, it gets me sometimes, but I can. I gotta hold you accountable, Eduardo, even though I love you. And I'm sure you feel the same way, even though you might not agree with my take sometimes. Let's see. Lisa asked, Mailbag, do you guys think we would have gotten more for Swift if we had traded him before we picked Gibbs at 12? That's a tricky one because I don't know, to be honest, guys.
I don't really think Detroit, like the value would have dipped.
No, I think it was
maybe like maybe a little bit, like just a little more, just because
maybe you get a
like
fifth
they
or a
knew he had
sixth.
like they knew we had to trade him, so like that was like you knew because you drafted Gibbs, but it wouldn't have been like a drastic change.
No,
because he only had 1 year left on his deal as well. It was a 1 year deal.
Yeah, I mean, I maybe a round or two improvement from a draft pick perspective, but I don't think it would have been much. I do think it was clear that the Lions weren't keeping him, so therefore his value goes down. But it's not like Swift was some prized possession. Like no one would have thought he would have had the year he had in Philly. Like I mean, he thought he'd play better, but not to that extent. He played really well, to be honest with you. Let's see here. We'll go to Chef Talks.
Healthy.
Mailbag, Jeff, just for poops and giggles. I never heard anyone say that before. That's an interesting poops and giggles. Oh, well, I get it because you didn't want to say the other word. And I'm going to tweet Booner later so he'll know my stance on Goff. But what do you think about Williams versus Goff? God, you just know how to. Jeez. I mean, I think I did say that Goff year 1 or year 2, I think Goff is going to be ranked higher. He's better, but I think Caleb has more upside than Goff does, and I don't think that's a crazy take. I think Caleb has one of the more highest upsides, I think, in this entire draft class to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And quite frankly, I think Goff is a top 10 quarterback, but I don't know if he'll ever elevate to a top 3 guy. He's just going to be a top, which is fine. I mean, that's a great thing. I just think Caleb has top 5, top 3 potential, in my opinion.
That's that elite versus great. Like that's the elite versus great. Comparison to where that he could be elite, and Jared Goff can't really get to that elite level because he's not mobile and he doesn't have like the arm strength. Like there's certain things he doesn't have that Caleb does have that Goff just can't help.
Mr. Detroit City Mailbag, over under 6 months before the Motor City Heavyweights fly solo. I don't know about that. I don't know anything about that. That's up to
We're the Motor City Heavyweights. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, those are our guys, man. I don't, but that's up to them. It's not our decision.
Shout out to the fellas, man.
It's up to those guys. Let's see. Steve-O says, who's got the better resume though in Detroit sports right now? I don't know what that means, to be honest. Better resume.
Like team maybe.
Not sure. Steve, we got to clarify that one. IT Hips, Mailbag, do you believe Brad is just being secretive about going out and getting a big defensive free agent, or does he surprise us? No, I think he's been very honest when he speaks to people. I think what he says is what he believes, and I don't think he'll go out and sign a big-time defensive player.
By the way, too, did you guys hear his comments today on the corner situation?
What'd he say?
We didn't really bring it up, but he did mention like his favorite position to watch in football. Like, he loves watching and breaking down corners. And he said that is one of the hardest positions to find a dude at in the draft. Like, basically he was saying, like, there's all these names and people might have all these names in the draft in the first, second round. But he was like, just because they have great, great size and this and that, and on paper they look good, he was like, it is the hardest position to find someone who's actually good at that. And he was like, there's a lot of guys in this draft who look good on paper, and he's just like, I'm not like, they're not it for me. And he's like, that is literally my favorite position is corner. So I do expect him to make a move. When he made that comment, and we can play it tomorrow, I'll clip it and we can do it on the show tomorrow. When he made that comment and the full sentence that he said about it, I think he's going to kind of go towards more so signing a corner than drafting one at 29. That was like, if you watched it back, and again, we'll play it tomorrow. Once you watch it back, you'll like instantly, you'll be like, he's probably gonna sign someone instead of drafting one at 29. That was just the way I took it. But it does give me confidence though, because he did say that's his favorite position to kind of go out there and get is a corner like that. So he knows what he's doing when it comes to it.
Mm-hmm. Where are you at? I mean, you kind of said your piece too, Lukas, about what you kind of think, but I think we're all.
Yeah, I've always said it's cornerback, especially late in the first round. You're gonna have to draft a guy to develop. There's not gonna be a guy, especially after the first round. It's an anomaly that a guy. I mean, Tariq Woolen is an anomaly, and even look what he did year 2, where you can find a guy late in the draft that can play week 1 for your NFL team at the cornerback position. Very rare. Oh. Under for sure. Under for sure. I don't remember the last time I got 8 hours of sleep.
Man, he's grinding. It definitely. ETN says Mailbag top 3 least favorite NFL teams. I would say the Dallas Cowboys, easily number 1.
Cowboys.
I would say the Packers. And I will say what's the third one?
Bears?
Yeah, I was trying to think of another, because I hate the Packers out of the NFC North the most. So I was trying to think of another team, but yeah, it'd probably be 2 NFC North teams, and then
I can put a good one in there. The Seahawks. That's one of the last few years that we've struggled with.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Mine, Packers, easily number 1, Cowboys, and I couldn't tell you why, but I've never been able to stand the Titans. The Titans have always been a team that they could be good for no reason. I would never support the Tennessee Titans.
Man, Tennessee caught a stray. That's
I just know there's nothing. I don't like anything about it. They've never been anything. Derrick Henry is a great player, but it's just one of those things where it's just like I've never had a reason to like the Titans.
That's fair. Zach says, Mailbag, Chris Jones followed the Lions today, I read. Is there any situation there where that wouldn't be a great move, even if he's the highest paid player under Goff? Yeah, no. I don't see them doing it, A, and B, although Chris would be great because he would be like a short-term contract, he probably just wants to make a bag and then like for a year or 2 and leave. So it's like you don't have to commit long-term to him. I just don't think they're going to give him what he wants, which is closer to $30 million a year.
Yeah,
I just
So
don't.
much money, dude.
Yeah,
it's so much
crazy. I don't believe. Maybe they give him like a short-term deal. That'd be fine. But I just don't see it happening.
I think he ends up in Kansas City. He stays with the Chiefs.
Yeah, and then Snead
they go for a 3-peat. Yeah.
Well, last question here. Mailbag, that guy up north. Mailbag, is there going to be another Crunch Time show added soon, morning, midday? At this time, no. We like the crew we have. Now the time slot may change in the future, but right now it's 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's how it's going to be. And then throughout the day, we'll have content posted, and eventually we'll have a clips channel where more clips will be posted, so on and so forth. But we're going to roll with the crew we have now. We don't have any plans for expansion. It's just too many cooks in the kitchen. And maybe things change down the line, but right now, no, we want to stick with our guys.
A lot
here.
going on.
Yeah. It's hard enough to do this and make it work and put our all into it. Like to add more programming. It's, you don't want to bite off more than you could chew. Like, you definitely don't want to do that, but
very well said, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, what I do want to do is say thank you to everyone for tuning in, and shout out to you guys, you fellas. Gentry will be back tomorrow. He's handling some business. But until then, Be back tomorrow. We'll have more great guests on, like John Maakaron, like we had yesterday, Mike. And moving forward, we'll have a lot more to break down. Obviously, Combine this week. We'll mention a lot of that. Break that down. We'll be in Indianapolis on Friday, so that'll be a good time. If you're down there, come say hi. We'll message us on Instagram, wherever we are, or Twitter, wherever, and maybe we can meet up and meet some subscribers. That'll be a lot of fun. But until then, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe. We're almost at 4,000. We're about 100 away from 4,000. So on the road to 10,000. That's our goal. We're speaking it into existence. 10,000 before the NFL draft.
Ooh,
until tomorrow.
Let's go.
Have a great night, everybody. Have a blessed night. And thank you for tuning in.